I just got an error message, and so we're trying to reconnect the tubes again and see if they connect themselves. And it looks like that's connecting to the YouTubes. Are we connecting to the locals tubes? We had an error with the tubes, man. It was working this morning and we had an error. All right. Is it working now? All right. We're on locals. We're on the Rumbles. We're on the Telegrams. We're on the YouTubes. I think it's working. All right. Let's get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia, and today we're talking about the Trump trial. That's right, my friends. He was in court in New York, and we're going to go through it. It was an explosive day. I mean, a lot happening here. And so, testimony today from Trump. He got a subpoena from Leticia James. We know who she is, the New York Attorney General, who is out there talking all sorts of garbage out there on the streets in New York, where there's also garbage in large troves. She's out explaining why Trump is a liar and a monster and all the things. And of course, as we know, Trump is gagged in many ways from saying certain things in these criminal and civil proceedings. So we're going to go through this because Trump took the stand, man. He was called in there. They put him up there on the bench, and he got asked some questions, and it was about as spicy as you could expect it to be. We're going to see what's going on inside the courtroom with some camera footage. You can see Trump is in there, seated next to Alina Habba, and we got some photographs in there. Full courtroom, jam-packed. And so we're going to go into all of that today. Now, we've got some X scripts that we're going to go through. So some, kind of like trial transcripts, except on the X platform. And we've got several people that we'll jump into and check today. Of course, Classfeld Reports is where we've been following some of this. Dan Alexander's also been in the house. I had a great telephone conversation with our friend GoodLawgic. If you're not already subscribed to his channel, you should be. He's over on YouTube as well. At GoodLawgic is his. You see the link right there. You can find him. Just type it in. You'll find him. But had a great conversation with him. He was there. He was posting notes on his X account. And so he was there. He was just kind of shocked, ecstatic about what happened. I mean, it was like an explosive day. So he's going to be covering it as well on his channel. So what we don't get to today, make sure you go over there because he was in the courtroom today and he's going to unpack it all. We're also going to see what Inner City Press had to say about this because he's back reporting and everybody was just crashing into court. So we got a lot to get to. Trump made a statement about it, and Alina Habba also made a statement just blasting the judge. And so she came out and delivered it on the court steps. And so we'll see what she said all in the first episode or the first segment today, because it's pretty historic. Trump testifying, right? Former president, current presidential candidate, crushing Joe Biden in the polls. New York Times and CBS Siena came out over the weekend. We talked about that this morning on our members only stream, but Trump is far and away winning, which is why they have to do all this garbage. Then we've got, in our second segment, we're going to talk about the Florida case. The classified documents case. We got some good stuff to go through here. And today we've got some transcripts. Woo, we love transcripts. And guess where we got those? None other than our friend Julie Kelly, who I also talked to today. And she's doing great too. So she sent over some transcripts and we're going to go through this. She wrote a great piece over on declassified.live, which is really breaking this whole hearing down. But she was kind enough to send us over the transcripts. And so we're going to go through the transcripts. Of course, you should be following Julie Kelly. If you're not, you probably are. At Julie_Kelly2 on the X platform. And she's also got a beautiful Substack over at declassified.live. So certainly go check that out. But we're going to go through the motions hearing today because there was some serious chaos there. And they're all trying to decide when the next trial setting is going to be. When are the next deadlines, essentially, in the case. And we're going to learn that there apparently, according to Trump's defense, a little bit more collusion there between Jack Smith, the special counsel's office, and the Biden White House, NARA, the intelligence agencies. Okay, all of the different, classified documents, they all got signed off on and approved, and they all got charged, and there's a lot more to the story than just they found some boxes of classified documents, right? We've talked about this. NARA essentially working with the White House to turn these documents from non-illegal into illegal and then prosecute Trump in the aftermath. So we'll go through all that and more. And then in our final segment, we'll get updates on what Joe Biden is happening in Joe Biden's world. Well, I was going to say nothing's really happening in Joe Biden's world because he's Joe Biden. But we are going to talk about some things that are happening outside of Joe Biden's world, which is evidence about his corruption and his criminality. And so James Comer said there's going to be a lot coming out this week and more will be revealed. But we've also got this story. Even Politico can't deny it, saying that fresh revelations are contradicting Biden's claims. You're kidding me. And they use very nice, colorful language like that. You know, fresh revelations contradict Biden's claims and all this stuff. And you go, contradiction? What do you mean, lie? You mean lies? Yeah, they're called lies. Okay, so he's just been lying to everybody. Welcome to the club now that you figured it out. So we'll go into all of that and more, my friends. And you can see we've got a jam-packed day. So we're going to get to it. This morning, we had a fun members-only stream. We do a lot of fun stuff with our members. We like to do Saturday shows and have fun checking into some other areas. You know, today and really, you know, moving forward, it's going to be a lot of Trump stuff, right? Just letting you know, because he's been indicted 4 times. So we got a lot to talk about. But there's other things happening in the world. And so, for example, today we talked about how Democrats are freaking because Biden poll numbers are plummeting. Even David Axelrod, you may remember him from the 2 Obama terrible White House terms. Axelrod is saying, yeah, it's probably about time for Joe Biden to drop out. And we've been waiting for that to happen. We talked about that this morning with our members. Also, we talked about Trump and his allies plotting revenge. Revenge, there we go, is done. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens because, of course, that's why we're voting for him, because we'd like to see some of that occur. So that's what we talk about on our member streams. We'd love it if you joined us and became a member. It's a great way to support our work. It's a great way to connect with other people here. And it's a great way to get some extra content and have some fun. Watching the Watchers. .locals.com is where you can come and join us. We stream in the mornings. We stream on Saturdays. We've already had his full stream today. You may have missed it, but don't miss tomorrow's. Check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've also got our website, robertgovea.com, where you can sign up for our daily newsletter, which I would encourage you to do. That way you can get all of the show reports, everything we're about to talk about delivered to your inbox every day. You don't even have to think about it. And that way you can also grab some of those emails and forward them to friends, forward them to family members. Say, listen to what they're doing to Trump. Just forward hard. And so check it out. robertgovea.com is the place to go to sign up for the newsletter and read the daily reports and access all the mind map stuff right there for you. robertgovea.com. All right. And of course, my friends, we are a little bit early, of course, today. We had a time change, not here in Arizona, because we don't do that. But apparently everyone else changed their times for whatever reason. Nobody still explained that to me in a way that makes sense. But point is, this is going to be the new time moving forward. So this will be the time because it's right when it works here. Arizona doesn't move. So unfortunately, we have to stay the same and everybody else has to shift around us. You know, I don't know. Maybe get rid of daylight savings time and we don't have to go through this every year. Just a thought, you know, anyways. All right, so that's what's up, my friends. I'm glad that you made it. And so just adjust your clocks to new Watching the Watchers time, you know, depending on where you are. And we're grateful that you are here regardless. Okay, let's get to it. Trump testifies in the New York civil fraud trial, a historic day of testimony, and it went about as well as you could expect. Of course, this is a circus and a show trial, and so Trump made that known. They called him up there, and he was able to tell the judge, hack, partisan, prosecution, all of this is rigged, election interference, and all of those things. And it was a wild day. Over on the X platform, we had a lot of different X scripts, which will be the live tweet transcripts of the proceedings. And so we're going to go through it. Remember, these people keep telling us that they want transparency and they want everybody to see Trump's criminality and blah, blah, blah. Leticia James will come out and she'll stand on the court steps and she'll talk from her mouth about this. But when there are opportunities for cameras in the courtroom, they kick them all out. And so we just have to read through some of the X scripts because they don't want us to see this disgusting thing that they're doing to him. Alina Habba is going to come out, and so stick around. She's going to blast the judge. She's going to blast Leticia James and everybody. And so we'll save that for the end of this segment once we see what they did to Trump and the defense in court. But this was the scene inside the courtroom. Of course, they let the cameras come in for just a few minutes. And C-SPAN had this clip for us. You can see here's what it looks like. They're running in there. Get the footage. Get the shots, man. All the journos in there. That nice shot of the desk. Like to look at that. There's some feet there. And there he is, Trump. Looking good. Looking solid. Looking fortified. To his left, we have Alina Habba. To his right, we've got Christopher Keese, his other lawyer. And we're going to be hearing a lot from them today, okay? They were very active in the testimony because they're defending Trump, and the judge is scolding him, criticizing him, very irritated that he's not just agreeing to be guilty. Oh, yes, Your Honor, I'll just be guilty here, whatever you say. Not going to play that game. All right, we've got, I think I see Jason Miller in the background there. There's other lawyers back here. I think that's Todd Blanche, who's sitting there back there behind the bar. And so you've got the lawyers who are actually doing some of the work there right in front of the bar. Christopher Keese, Donald Trump seated there alongside Alina Habba. Very serious faces today. This is a big moment, you know, and they're treating this like it's kind of a joke in this courtroom. They're all laughing and making jokes, and Tish James is just sitting there, you know, not doing much of anything. And so that's what it looked like inside the courtroom. And we also have some photos of this. So Trump, you can see here, for a brief moment, was making a statement to the press. We will listen to some of that when we get there. We also had Alina Habba, because she came out. She said that we're going to be declaring a mistrial in this case. And near the end of the testimony, we're going to hear how this all exploded. And Alina's furious about it. The judge is furious with them. And it's just a mess. So we'll go through it. Trump was slamming Leticia James. You see a photograph of him here. They put him on the stand, and he's just blasting her, rightfully so, because she is a partisan hack. Same thing here, another photograph from another angle. You see the courtroom is just jam-packed full. And I do know that there were some people in there that we know. Shout out to our friend GoodLawgic on YouTube, who's also covering this stuff. So we've got Alina Habba looking at the camera. Here's Trump coming out, making a statement, motioning with zipped lips with his hands as he left the courtroom. Doesn't want to communicate there. And we'll come back and hear from Alina Habba. Now, here's a court rendering of Donald Trump. They even got the hands there in place from inside the courtroom. Another photograph of him, looks like being questioned by some government bureaucrat, and another judge looking at him over to the judge's left. We see here's another photograph. Oh, that's very, very befitting of this one. You know, looks like this person has a nice favorable opinion of Trump. Now, let me make him look as terrible as I can with these chalk pencils. And so other videos, here's another footage. Here's what the judge looked like today. And you don't know it, but right over on his right is his Greenfield, GF, his Greenfield. He's very in love with his Greenfield. Don't you talk about my Greenfield, which is his law clerk who he's gagged everybody over. You can't talk about her, even though, I don't know what some bizarre thing, even though she's passing him notes like every 2 minutes. So a lot more videos, a lot more footage from inside the courtroom. But let's jump in to the trial testimony before we take a break and listen to Leticia James talking all sorts of garbage. And so a lot of people were live tweeting this and live Xing, transcripting this for us. And so today we'll bounce through a couple of them, actually. But we'll start the day off with Adam Klasfeld and see what he says. Now, he was there on the scene in New York. And of course, he gives us a breakdown. He says, getting started, Letitia, is in her same spot because she has the cushion just the way that she likes it. You know, when you sit in a long spot for a long time, you kind of mold it into your bottom. And she's been sitting there for, I don't know how many long weeks now, long time. And as we know, her Twitter handle is called Tish James. So her Tish has been just cultivating this court seat for weeks now. Gross. All right. So here, she's seated in her usual spot behind the bar, not doing anything. This time, she's near her predecessor, somebody called Barbara Underwood, who's also coming in to watch the movie. Then, Trump enters the game. Dun, dun, dun. Witness entering. Trump comes into the courtroom. Everybody is existing with hushed breath. Now we're seated, waiting around. The photographers come in. All rise. Oh, gosh, it's this judge again. All right, please be seated. Court is now in session. All right. So Judge Engoron, he's shuffling around his papers. He says, all right, photographers, come on in. Do your due diligence. Now, Engoron says, the judge, why don't you bring the gaggle of the journalists in? He says, you know what a gaggle means, everybody? A gaggle means geese. It's usually the word for plural of geese, like a group of geese is called a gaggle. Thanks, Judge, for that. So they were getting ready to go, and this is the big moment in time. This is something that will echo, I think, through the history books. When America looks back and we wonder what was the cause of a lot of our problems, it's going to be moments just like this, where our government is becoming weaponized and prosecuting their political opponents. It's a really sad day, but here we are. Out of New York Attorney General Counsel, this guy's name is Kevin Wallace, just to be clear on who this is. On behalf of Leticia James and the rest of the AG's office from the state of New York. Your Honor, the people call Donald J. Trump. Nice job, Kevin. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. So the former president walks up to the stand. Now, Kev, he starts questioning. He says, oh, okay, Mr. Trump. Or today we're going to start with your corporate structure and your beneficial ownership of this. Now, Mr. Trump, I have a question for you. Did you form your revocable trust when you ran for president? When did you form it? Trump says, well, pretty much when I won, I formed the trust. Oh, okay. So why did you appoint Don Jr. as your trustee? He says, well, he's a hardworking boy. I won. Young man. He's done a very good job. He's a hardworking boy, young man. He's done a very good job. So why did you reinstall yourself, Mr. Trump, as trustee before leaving the White House? So Trump wins, subs himself out of trustee, subs in Don Jr. Leaves the White House, subs out Don Jr., subs himself back in. Mr. Trump, why did you reinstall yourself as trustee when you left the White House? He said, well, because I was going to go back to business. He says, so I was going to go back into business, which is why I had to put myself on the trustee position. And largely that's because you, talking to Kev, and other Democrat prosecutors were all coming after me for 15 different sides. And all these cases you bring in were not good. In fact, we've been seeing a lot of this. They call it weaponization in the media, which is what you're doing to me now. They say, okay, whatever, Trump. And they say, all right, Mr. Trump, I want to show you a statement of financial condition. This is back from June 30th, 2011. You recognize it? He says, maybe. He says, I want to show you some bits and pieces of this. He says, well, it's just a statement. I want to show you this disclaimer. You would agree with me that this is an important document, right? He says, well, not really. You would agree that this is an important statement here? He says, not really. In my business, we would call it a worthless statement clause. He says, they were not really documents that the banks paid much attention to. These are just forms. We just sign them, fill it out. Nobody really reads them. Now, Judge Engoron rejected that, of course, because Judge Engoron rejects everything. So Klasfeld tells us that Trump launches into a monologue. We're going to check in with some other people to see what else we missed. But Klasfeld says Trump goes into a monologue. He says, as this crazy trial goes along, he says, we're going to call the bankers and they're going to explain what the process is. Okay. We were working with the banks. The banks know what the process is. I don't even know what we're doing here. He goes on this monologue. The judge interjects. He said, Mr. Trump, can you stop for a moment, please? Now, I want to be clear. Titia's office has been very patient here. And so no more monologues from you, Mr. Trump. You're instructed, the court is instructing you to answer only the questions presented to you. And the judge is saying that this worthless clause stuff doesn't matter, right? So the worthless clause is not relevant. And so that's from Klasfeld. Now, let's pick back up with Klasfeld. Now, let me see if I can find out what happened to the rest of this thread. So Klasfeld is continuing. And let's pick up here with Inner City Press. Now that we've got now that we've started. And let's back up. Okay, so Trump is back on the stand. He says, here, Trump is on the stand and Trump just said, this is a very unfair trial. I hope the public is watching. He says, the judge says to Trump, Mr. Trump, we're not here listening. We're not here to listen to what you have to say. We are not here to listen to what you have to say. which is a strange thing to say to somebody who is testifying, on the stand. We are not here to listen to what am I doing here then, Judge? You are supposed to answer. So Trump's lawyer jumps up, maybe it's Alina, says, Your Honor, hello, we are here to say what he has to hear, what he has to say. Judge says, sit down over there, okay? Don't make fun of me, all right? I don't know what I'm saying here. Sit down. All right, proceed. And so they go back to Trump, and they're asking him about this form. So the lawyer says to Trump, the Tisch prosecutor says, Mr. Trump, so this document's important, and you signed these documents and all these things. Is this a worthless clause? Blah, blah, blah. Now I want to talk about valuation. When we're looking at this form, it says this says value is based on the leases. Is that right? The value of the leases. Is that true? Trump says, well, it's just the estimated value. Lawyer says, prosecutor says. So was the $560 million valuation based on current and accurate information? And Trump says yes. So the document here is about the mansion at Bedford Springs, right? It says it was valued at $291 million. Was that true? He said, well, I thought it was too high, so we lowered it. Trump says it's a magnificent place, by the way. Someone would pay more for it if you don't build more housing on it. Judge says, all right, let's take a break. So they take a 15-minute break. Now, they direct the witness not to talk about the case during his testimony, all right? So Trump can't talk about anything because we're right in the middle of trial and his testimony. So they're back. We take a quick break, and we're back. So, Mr. Trump, what was the basis on which you decided to drop the valuation? So you just said it was high, you just dropped it. So the basis? Trump said, I thought it was high. That's why. And they dropped it. So you thought it was not worth $291 million? Trump says, well, I might sell it for more. Well, when did you decide to lower the valuation? Oh, I said lower it. When? I don't remember. Well, this document said partnerships and joint ventures and 6th Avenue and Bank of America in San Francisco. Are you familiar with these? Yeah. So on this document, it says that you own 30% of this. Is that true? Well, I didn't put up any money. I got a great relationship with Vornado. A lot of people don't understand that. I got a limited partnership, and so that means limited liability, but I didn't have to go into it. And Vornado's great, by the way. Have you ever used their product? So it says, okay, so 30%. So you don't control this entity. Is that right, Mr. Trump? No. We have a very good relationship. And the judge cuts him off because Trump's about to go into something else. He says, all right, you answered your question. This is the judge. You answered your question. Move on. So Trump says, what the heck? He says, that Bank of America building, I think it's the best building on the West Coast, by the way. And the prosecutor from Tisch's office says, I didn't ask you about that. I asked you about the value. What was the value of the building? He says, for both? Yeah. Well, that was the hottest period ever for properties. I don't know that I'd sell my interest. It's basically saying it's priceless. There is no value. Prosecutor's getting frustrated. I'm going to hand the witness a document, Your Honor. He looks at the document. He says, well, the building's been refinanced 2 years ago. And the government says, there's no question, Trump. I didn't ask you anything. Now, here's a document, Mr. Trump. It says, Alan wants to talk to DJT. Does this refresh your recollection about Vornado, Mr. Trump? Because I don't remember when it was or whatever. No, it doesn't. But I probably did. He says, okay, so back to the statement of financial condition, Mr. Trump. You believe that it has an $814 million value? Trump says, I think so. Says, would you get copies of statements in 2021? He says, well, I was so busy in the White House, China, Russia, keeping our country, and they cut him off. You weren't president in 2021. Look to the bottom of the page. Trump Tower triplex. Were you involved? No. They say, Your Honor, I want to move now to plaintiff's exhibit, whatever, row 893. It's called other assets. They say, look down, Mr. Trump. They're showing him, it sounds like a spreadsheet. Row 893, all the way from 893 to 969, all the spreadsheet numbers, all the way to 971, right? These are all valuations of your apartment. Isn't that true, Mr. Trump? It's not actually here, though. Trump says, I think that's why I missed it in there. Because it's not actually here. He says, it says 327 million. You said it was too high. Trump says, I didn't pick it up. Lawyer says, okay, this is actually the 2017. So the prosecutor screws up here. Oh, sorry. This is actually 2017, not 2021. Says, I misrepresented. Trump says, that's okay. Don't worry about your little mistake. No problem. So the government says, this change in valuation, so you changed it. It came at your direction. Trump says, I thought it was too high, but I'm seeing things sold for big numbers. You know, we have access to the roof. It's got a lot of different things. So I thought it was too high. And we have this disclaimer clause. We don't have to be sued by the Attorney General of New York. That's why we have a disclaimer clause, so that this doesn't happen. But it's happening, isn't it? Government says, but each floor of Trump's tower is 10,000 square feet. And he says, well, they didn't take out the elevator shafts and different things. You know, you have to calculate for those things. Oh, yeah, but Trump, this says 117 rooms and 20,000 square foot ballroom. It says it's a private club. Is that right? Trump says, yeah. And this was also transferred to an LLP in 1995. He says, well, probably so. I've done that with other properties. You do that today? Yeah. Well, I want to pull up some supporting data, Mr. Trump. I want to show you this spreadsheet. I want you to go down to row 189. Do you believe that Mar-a-Lago today is worth $1.5 billion, Mr. Trump? Trump says, I'd say it's between $1 billion and $1.5 billion. Yeah. Government says, Your Honor, Plaintiff's Exhibit 1013, rights to Mar-a-Lago. Mr. Trump, do you see your signature on this document? Yes. Now, do you intend to forever keep this residence, Mar-a-Lago, as a club? Keep it as a club as opposed to a residence? He says, well, a residence and a club is very successful. And they say, do you intend? Trump says, I have the right to switch it back. It says to intend. It doesn't say I will. I don't mind leaving it as a club. So I can intend to do this or not. He says the best would be to be a club with just one member. That's how it would work. Right. Trump is so funny, man. He's like, the real way to do it, the real way to finagle around all these rules is to just make it a club with one member. That way I get the club benefits, but I call it a residence or something, right? That's how you do it. It says, whereas, and then the lawyer's like, oh gosh. It says, whereas the National Trust is the grantee. This was recorded in 1995. Now, you had granted this back in Palm Beach. He says, that's correct. And you said it was a single family home. He says it was. In fact, E.F. Hutton was the person who owned it. He says, this was about an easement, what you're talking about. It was about an easement. I built a ballroom, and it was built by me. It was very large, very beautiful ballroom. I have a right to develop on my property, but it's more valuable without building on it. But you stated, Mr. Trump, right? You stated that it would forever be a club. Man, and Trump is way smarter than anybody gives him credit for. You stated it would be a forever club. He says, no, I didn't. It says intends, okay? It's intended to be whatever. He's mincing words with them, and they're not happy about this. So they say, Mr. Trump, the court officer is handing you an article from the Palm Beach Post. In your article, in some newspaper, you say it will forever be a club. Now, you said that in 2003, didn't you? And Trump says, well, that was said with bravado, you know, hello, as opposed to legal intent. Hey-yo, swish on that one. It's locker room talk, man. It was bravado. It's not legal intent, idiot. Why'd you go get a Palm Beach Post news article and bring that into court? Get out of here. But they say a club pays less taxes, right? He says, yeah, of course it does, much less. I asked to enter this into evidence. So, and Trump's lawyer jumps up. I don't know if this is Keese or who. Says, and so you'll include him saying that it could go back, the one you didn't show him? That other evidence? Are you going to ask him about that? The one where he said it could go back? And the government goes, oh, okay, I guess I'll read it. And she does read it. Yeah, read the full thing where he said the other thing. Maybe it'll stay a club forever. Maybe it'll go back. Maybe not, whatever. The Judge Engoron says, perfect, admitted. Government continues. They say, let's look at page 6. I want to take your attention to item 1. It says private ownership, talking to Trump. Now, you said 80 qualified buyers look at it, but they didn't bid. They called it a white elephant. Is that correct? He says, yeah, I got lucky. Why? Because it's no longer a white elephant? He says, it is not. They say, all right, enough about Mar-a-Lago. Now, I want to talk about your golf club in Scotland, Trump. You say on this document that it's 500 hectares. Was this accurate? That you had permission for like a residential village? Is that what you say? Trump says, yeah. Well, it's the oil capital of Europe. It's the oil capital of Europe. That's why I was there. We're going to get 500 acres and all the thing. And the judge jumps in. So the government is not even saying anything. The judge jumps in. Engoron. Irrelevant. Irrelevant. I don't care if it's oil capital. Answer the questions, Trump. Government says, Trump, okay, look, here's the spreadsheet. Column G. We're talking about valuations. They're trying to keep him on track. And Trump goes right back to the amazingness of Scotland. He says, you know, it was very successful. It was on the ocean, a big development job. We had to bring in like all these tractors and stuff. I don't need to build 1,000 houses, okay? This was an artistic expression. It's the greatest golf course ever built, I think. And no, I'm in no rush. I don't have to do anything with the property. He says, by the way, I'm not looking to build right now in the first place. I'm going to other things right now, like running for president. So I just want to sit with it on the property, okay? It's called an investment. So they say, okay, so you're not building on your Scotland property. He says, well, I am building. I am a second course, but I'm not looking to build a big development is what I meant, Tish. But you also, Mr. Trump, you did not build a hotel at Aberdeen, did you? Can you believe these people are harassing him about where he's building properties? So you didn't build a hotel at Aberdeen. Why not? He says, well, I didn't want to. I have a castle. Why do I build something when I have a castle? It's already a castle. I don't need to build anything. At some point, I'll go there and build. Maybe, maybe not. So they say, they're getting frustrated. Well, what about your $240 million increase in valuation, Mr. Trump? He says, go down to row 49. Well, no, it goes from 76 million from 240. He says, and this says the valuation is based on 2,500 homes, but this comes down to 1,400. And so it doesn't accurately include the number of homes. Wouldn't you agree? Like you're saying that there's homes on there, or there's potential for homes, or there's something with homes, and there is no homes. So you lied, didn't you? And Trump says, well, I could go with a big job if I had to. You know, it's a rich place. It may be the greatest golf course I've ever built. And right, that's kind of a non-responsive answer, right? Just in reading this. And he says, and so the judge jumps in. He looks over to the government. And they're letting, like, this is their witness. Okay, so they should be able to get control of Trump, not the judge. The judge jumps in and he looks over to the government and he tries to like cut him off. He says, I'm following your lead if you want to let him ramble on, right? The judge is saying this about Trump. If you want to let Trump ramble on, I'll let you do it. And it's like, well, they were already letting him do it, Judge. So you don't need to interject yourself. It's not your witness. So the government says, they're like, yeah, great. I want to preserve it for the record. So they're just saying, yeah, let Trump, you know, hoist himself on his own petard. Let him ramble on out there and we'll just catalog everything. So Trump's lawyer then stands up, says, it's not clear, Your Honor, if he was answering about the backup data. And the government says, I don't think it was answered at all. So they go back. Let's rephrase the question. They say, okay, so Mr. Trump, the number of homes that you say were there, they don't match this other property, right? This other allegation. Trump's amazing. He says, think of it like a painting, kind of like what Hunter does. The land is there. Okay, you can do what you want to do. You can do either one of them. You can put stuff on there, don't put stuff on them. The land's there. Do whatever you want with them. And they say, well, what about the windmills on the property? He says, yeah, the windmills. I'm not happy about them. You know, they built them. And they say, who, Scotland? He says, yeah, Scotland built them. He says, I'm not a windmill person, okay? And I think I've been proven to be right on these things. And I think he's right about that, by the way. Whales are dropping dead over there because of these green, you know, these green people. So they're like, okay, well, they say, government continues. They say, okay, well, Mr. Weisselberg told the UK regulators that Trump did not intend to develop the properties due to the windmills. That's what somebody on your team, the CFO, said. Is that true? He said, well, the windmills will probably come down one day, you know, but they are miles out there. And he says, by the way, that was in 2014. And that's when we were fighting the windmills. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with sitting and waiting. You can sit and wait if you want to, if you've got the money. And I've got a lot for money. He goes, more than you thought. And there's laughter in the courtroom. Trump, I don't have to build anything, man. I can just sit on this golf course, sit on the land forever. Leave me alone. And they say, they hold up another document. Mr. Trump, do you stand by this document? Do you stand by this? He says, well, I haven't looked at it in years. So I would carry it forward to 2021. All of those valuations were too low. We have the disclaimer clause. They always hold up in court, except maybe in this court with you people. But that's why we have disclaimer clauses. It says on the paperwork, You must do your own due diligence. And the government's not happy about this. Okay, I know it says that, but do you still stand behind these statements right here with your signature on it? He says, yes, of course. You haven't shown me anything to make me disbelieve it. Again, even if it was material, like even if this mattered in any way, we have a disclaimer clause that says in the document, don't count on this. That clause is on page 1. That's why I didn't get involved in these things. We shouldn't be having a case here. Every court in this country upholds these clauses, except this particular judge right here, Engoron, loser, who's got a greenfield sitting right next to him, who's passing him notes all the time. I added that last bit in. Trump says, people like you go around to try to demean me and to hurt me. And people like her. He points to Tish. And the courtroom goes, oh, in the courtroom. People like her, who's sitting back there in her little cushion that is all conformed to her derriere. Oh, New York Attorney General prosecutor says, okay, so was Alan, your CFO, Alan Weisselberg, was he not careful? Trump says he was, totally. But there was the disclaimer clause, also called the non-reliance clause, in case you ever heard of it. Did you go to law school, by the way? This is disgraceful. This is disgraceful. And the prosecutor gets very agitated. Your Honor, I move to strike as non-responsive and argumentative. Trump's lawyer pops up. He says, Your Honor, Mr. Wallace is getting what he asked for, okay? It's a brilliant answer. We could do this again in 3 weeks. Let him explain his position. It's a brilliant answer. So Trump is mopping the floor with these people. Yeah, there's a disclaimer clause. It's also called the non-reliance clause. You can call it whatever you want, but it's the same function, idiot. This is disgraceful. Your Honor, I move to strike. What? The answer? You didn't like the answer? This is New York, man. So Trump's lawyer says he's getting what he's asked for. You better believe it. So we could do it again in 3 weeks. Judge says, yeah, leave it in. It's actually a pretty good answer. So sorry, prosecutor. These guys are not that good. The government says, you don't believe the attorney general's positions. You don't believe the AG's positions, which is a wild question to ask Trump. I mean, what kind of question is this? You don't believe Tishy's questions? Trump gets free range now. What kind of a question is this? He says, let's go, baby. I think she is a political hack who wants to be governor. It's a disgrace this case is going on. Legal scholars agree with me. This is a political witch hunt, and I think she should be ashamed of herself looking to Tish. Do you agree with the AG that these are overvalued? Trump's lawyer jumps in. Objection, asked and answered. Sorry, leave him alone. Judge Engoron screams with exclamation points. No, it has not been answered. He's been sitting here spinning a yarn this whole trial. Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, jumps up. She says, it has been answered. So she's objecting. And she says, and I'm not yelling, Judge. So he must have told her to stop yelling. And she's like, I'm not yelling. You're yelling. So they go back to Trump, who's probably sitting there cool as a cucumber. He says it's a disclaimer clause. That's why you're all idiots here. And so the judge says, no, Trump, we're not going to hear about that. Read my opinion about that. You can't talk about the disclaimer clause because I already wrote opinion about it. Trump says, he called me a fraud and he didn't know anything about me, this guy. Government says, you do not agree with the determination of this court? Like they're just shocked. And I can't believe they keep giving him these questions, which means maybe they want him to answer these questions. You know, it's my only other thought, but I don't know how legally that really matters other than to irritate the judge and who's already going to rule against him. So they're kind of strange questions, but you do not agree with the determination of the court? He says the fraud is on the court. They are defrauding the court. So he's actually nice to the court, right? Doesn't slam the court. He says, he said that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. Now he blasts him. What a fraud. As president of the United States, we did a great job. Just look at the president we have today. It's a terrible thing you've done. You believe that political hack back there talking to Tish, and there's just silence in the courtroom. You believe that political hack back there. Dead silence. Trump's just blasting everybody. Tish comes out. her lawyers, because she doesn't do anything, says, all right, Trump, let's get this back on track. Says, look, I'd like to go back to the statement of financial condition. It says Trump was responsible for designing and implementing internal controls relative to the presentation of these statements. You see that? It says Donald Trump, you were responsible for designing and implementing internal controls. Now, what did you do on this? Trump says, I hired an accounting firm. Yeah, that's what I did. I hired them. And they charged me a lot of money for this, a lot of money. And I could have just put any number down if I wanted to, but I didn't. I got expensive lawyers, and they did the due diligence, and they did the review. But isn't it true you told Mr. Weisselberg, your CFO, to use GAAP, G-A-A-P, generally accepted accounting principles? Trump said, well, I told Allen, I said, give the accountants what they want. So, Mr. Trump, who was responsible for being compliant with GAAP? He says, well, I'm not sure it's even required, but accountants were paid a lot of money. So what did you do? He said, I've answered that 5 times. Okay, what did you do specifically? Well, what is the answer, Mr. Trump? Accountants. That's who I've hired. So you say the Trump organization was responsible to comply with GAAP? Together with very highly paid accounting firms were responsible. Who in the Trump organization was responsible? They're trying to pin it on him now. He says, everybody. If anybody sees anything wrong, they're supposed to report it. He says, I tell people, come to me directly. Did anyone come to you? He says, sure. Yeah, I hear things. Apartments are supposed to be empty, but someone lets someone on. I take care of it. I don't want that going on. I'm back for a little bit in the real estate business. And you say, let's talk about 40 Wall Street, Mr. Trump. I want to ask you about this NOA. It says notice of intent. Is this accurate? He says, well, it's a long time ago. I think so. Your Honor, I'm handing up a document that has not been pre-marked, an article that the audio from September 21, 2015, and Trump takes a look at the document. Trump looks at the document. They're handing Trump a document. He looks at it. First words out of his mouth, Forbes is owned by China, by the way. China. So Trump says, having a good net worth is a positive thing. Can't say that it's not. It says that you marketed your building as a 72-story building, but it's actually shorter than that. Is that true? He says that it throws off $50 million a year if it's shorter. He says, well, I haven't dealt with Forbes in years. I think they're out of business. Are they out of business? They say, Trump, did you tell Forbes this? He says, no. When was this? 2015. He says, oh, long time ago. I don't know. They play the audio clip. They play it. Trump's speaking on the clip. Trump's lawyer says, I can't understand what's on the clip. Says, it's indecipherable. Your Honor, what is that? I can't hear anything. And the government says, oh, hey, Mr. Trump, you just heard yourself speak. Does that refresh your recollection, Trump? He says, no, it's long past the statute of limitations anyways. So it doesn't matter. So no, it doesn't matter. So they say, okay, let's go to page 2, Mr. Trump. Now on page 2, you said you spent millions of dollars. Is that true? He says, well, I spent my own money. We rebuilt the elevators and the lobbies. It's been very successful. But this shows that you had a negative cash flow for 40 Wall Street. Do you agree with that? That doesn't include all that was spent to bring the building up, and now it's leased up. So the number could be correct. He says, this has nothing to do with anything. Okay, this is de minimis. Why are you even bringing it up? Says she doesn't know what 40 Wall Street is worth. She doesn't even know where 40 Wall Street is. It's going to do very well in the future. And he's probably talking about Tish. Now, the government continues. Mr. Trump, are you aware of the method that was used to evaluate this? And Trump says, pretty easy. I can look at the buildings and tell you what they're worth. And I actually believe that, by the way. Because when you've been doing real estate for 30 years or 50 years or whatever he's been doing, you just get good at it, right? It's just like anything. You have to spend money to make money, says Trump. It's not material, the money. Now, they say, let's take all his properties away like they do in communist China. In this country today, a certain judge could do it. The government says, you're repeating yourself. He's like, well, it sounds good, though. Government says, this says on this document, negative cash flow. Did you know about this negative cash flow? Trump says, well, it could have been negative, maybe for 1 year. It makes a lot of money now, though. You know, you have extraordinary expenses. The money that we borrowed, it's all current, it's all paid off. Not one bank lost any money, not one dime. Government says, I want to show you another exhibit. This is an email with Donald Trump Jr. and the Wall Street Journal. Is this your email address? Trump says, I don't know. Did you communicate with the Wall Street Journal about this? I don't know. Well, who told them that it was worth $600 million? Who said it was worth more? He said it could have been worth more than that. Well, was there an appraisal on it? He says, 12 years ago? Well, I don't know. Did you tell this to the Wall Street Journal? Alina asked and answered. They're already asking him this. Judge overruled. And they carry on. So we get a 5-minute warning. The judge continues and the government continues. Mr. Trump, why did you have a statement of financial condition? Why did you have a statement of financial condition? I can't answer that, says Trump. But I think it's a positive thing to have, even for myself. But with the disclaimed clause, because it's a disclaimer, no one relied on it. They were supposed to do their own due diligence. Did you deal with the private wealth management group at Deutsche Bank? Trump says, yeah. Your Honor, I think that's a good time to break for lunch. And they go to lunch. And we're back. Hope your meal was delicious. Trump's back on the stand. Reminder, you're under oath. Mr. Government, please proceed. And they do. Mr. Trump, court officer is now handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 416 from Deutsche Bank. It's called a term loan agreement from 2012. It says, let's go to page 6. Now, is that your signature, Mr. Trump? He says, yes. Now, on page 105, the guarantor, did you sign this document? He says, yes, I did. Now, on this page, specifically, it says this in order to induce lending. Do you see that? Trump says, yes. In order to induce lending. Do you see that? Yes. Government says, little Roman 1. It says, as of June 30th, 2011, do you believe that it was true and accurate in order to induce lending? Trump says, yes, I do, saying that it does, in fact, look accurate. And let's jump over to the continuation of this thread. And we're going to scroll back up on this one. And we're going to connect the dots. But we got a new thread started. Here it is. Carrying on from Inner City Press. Did you sign it? Let's go to page 6. Did you sign it? He says yes. The guarantee, did you sign it? Yes. Were you aware this loan required you to retain liquid? He says, yes, cash. It was based on my cash. They were not interested in anything other than cash. And do you believe you complied with this loan? He says, yeah, I had a lot of cash. Were you aware this loan required you to maintain this? He says, look, I had the cash they wanted because of other people. In this deal, I agreed to put up the money necessary to complete the job, and I did that. Now, I want to ask you about this other exhibit from Deutsche Bank. Is this Trump Chicago residential? Trump says, yeah. They moved to admit. And Trump's lawyer says, objection, Your Honor. It's past the statute of limitations. They can't continue with this. Judge Engoron says, overruled. It's coming in. Mr. Trump, so this document required you to keep $50 million liquid, unencumbered in your bank account. It's a nice bank account, $50 million. I think we can afford it. Trump's lawyer, objection, Your Honor. There's a step down, and at some point, the guarantee goes away. And the lawyer says, that's an improper objection. The judge probably says, yeah, it is, because I hate you. And were you aware of this requirement? Trump says, yes, they only cared about cash. Judge, he's mischaracterizing the evidence. And the judge asks Mr. Wallace, he says, hey, Kevin, are you mischaracterizing the evidence? And he says, no, Your Honor, I'm not. He says, well, see, I see he said he's not mischaracterizing it, so eat it, Trump lawyers. So Wallace says, no, I am not mischaracterizing it. Well, that's all you need to know. That's how easy it is to be a judge, my friends. Just ask them if they're doing something wrong. Hey, are you trying to hide evidence from the defense? No. Well, that's the end of the story. Case is on, I guess. So this was a very successful loan, says Trump. The bank was thrilled. The bank liked me very much. Mr. Trump, were you aware of the Trump Chicago payoff last week? He says, I don't know about last week, but we are ahead of schedule on that one. Well, why was the loan paid off? He says, we have a lot of cash, and so my son recommended it. What son? Eric. So Trump says, listen, I understand what all this is, okay? It's called politics. They say, did you understand you were required to turn in annual financial statements? He says, well, I had them. Might as well put them in. So is that a yes? He says, yeah. Were you aware that there was a net worth guarantee clause in this? Trump says, sure. He says, I want to show you little I on this document. It says that you shall keep accurate books and records. Do you remember this? He says, no, not specifically, but it would be okay with me to have accurate books and records, obviously. Now, I want to show you this other loan agreement, Mr. Trump, with Deutsche Bank. It's for Old Post Office Hotel. Is this your signature on the document? Trump's defense says, objection, Your Honor, statute of limitations. Engoron says, overruled, it's coming in. Statute of limitations doesn't really apply here, according to them. Trump says, well, I don't know what you're getting at, but you can keep going. Trump says there's a 5-year statute of limitations, so you have no case. The clause tells the lender to go out and do your own due diligence, okay? You didn't read that. A lot of people have figured that out today. Did you comply? He says the bank was happy. Who was responsible to keep accurate records? Trump says the accounting firm, and I paid them a lot of money. This doesn't include the brand value, okay? It was much higher. Like Trump's accountants, man, they got a lot just by doing our business. So you're saying this is not accurate? He's saying, I'm saying it omitted brand value, right? So the Trump brand also carries with it value. Mr. Trump, we're going to hand you another document. This is an internal Deutsche Bank email with your signature in the attachment. Is this yours? Yeah. And you knew that Deutsche Bank would reply on this? He says, well, I could have negotiated it out. We've seen multiple loan agreements, Mr. Trump, and your signature, and you paid all these loans off? He says, yes, I did. I paid with cash. I think this case is a disgrace. People are leaving New York due to this kind of thing. The only complainant here is you. You have an attorney general sitting here all day in the back of the courtroom in her cushy little seat while people are being killed in the street. I don't have a jury. I want a jury. She sued me under a statute that doesn't have a jury. You are trying to keep me on the stand here as election interference today. The judge is like getting irritated again. Mr. Wallace, Kev, again, I'll follow your lead if you want to put up with this. If you want to put up with this. Judge, mind your business. He's dealing with it. Government says, I'm almost done, Your Honor. Do you believe Mr. Weisselberg, Trump's CFO, do you believe he did a good job? He says the banks don't just sit back, okay? They check. They've got expensive lawyers too. They're doing all their due diligence on this as well. Government lawyer says, did Alan Weisselberg, the CFO who's been charged and convicted, did he prepare the statements to your satisfaction? Trump says, I have to say yes. I have to say yes. He did it, but the bank accepted it, so it's on them too. Judge Engoron says, I'm going to date myself here, but it sounds like a broken record here, which is insane that the judge would chime in and say this. Trump says, hey, judge, by the way, it's the same question again and again. So I'm going to give him the same answer. Maybe they should come up with better questions and you wouldn't have to sit here and listen to my responses. Trump's attorney jumps back up and says, Your Honor, Trump's right. We've spent an hour on what seems like a breach of a contract case, all right? Only the bank can enforce it. What are we talking about here? The attorney general doesn't get to second guess what the bank does. Judge says, I'm just going to leave that here for now. Leave it at that for now. Inner City Press is reporting at Inner City Press on the X. Government continues, says, Mr. Trump, when Mr. Weisselberg pled guilty, This was the former CFO from the Trump organization who did take a guilty plea. Did it change your view? Trump says, it was a sad thing. He was targeted because he worked for me, and I ran for president and did very, very well. It's a very sad thing. So you didn't re-review his work? Trump says, no, I had no reason to. Well, were you aware that Mr. Weisselberg was being compensated with apartments paid for by the company? He says, well, I don't think that's a big thing, is it? I mean, I feel bad about the whole situation, but it's not that big of a deal. Is that you need to destroy a man over that? They say to Trump, do you think anything needs to change at the Trump organization due to this case? Trump says no. And it's overruled. Objection overruled from Trump's defense. He says, no, the company has a successful record, so we're good. Government says, Mr. Trump, now you've asked for recommendations. Is that, and Trump's lawyers jump up. Do not answer that. That's privilege. Do not answer that. They freak out. You've asked for nope, privilege. All attorney-client privilege. Don't respond. Engoron says, I disagree. Trump's going to answer. Please answer. Trump says, yeah, we have asked for recommendations. And who have you spoken with for those recommendations? He says, Eric Trump. Now, we've got nothing further at this time from the government. And Engoron says anything from the defense side for cross-examination? Nope. No cross-examination from Trump. So Trump is done. Anything else from the defense? No, done. And so no cross-examination because Trump did pretty good. I got to tell you, not much there. And they don't have a lot to clean up on that. And so then if they went and did a cross-examination, then there would be a redirect. And so we're not going to do that. They're just going to get Trump off the stand immediately. Done. No cross-examination. And they're going to say that they got Trump to admit that this was done to induce a loan or something like that. But honestly, I think Trump absolutely backhanded them with the response of disclaimer clauses and do your own due diligence. Now, the judge excluded all of that, but I think as a matter of practicality, that's what Trump needed to do to deliver the shield, the force field, to keep him from doing something that might incriminate himself further or be problematic. So I think it was a big victory, but we're not done. Okay, so this thing exploded. You can see after the fact, there is more. So Trump's lawyer now jumped in and says, Your Honor, how can we file a moment with the material in your gag order, a motion? How can we file a motion with the material in your gag order? Okay, now last week, we were having conversations about the gag order on the Trump lawyers. Trump's lawyers have been gagged from talking about Judge Engoron's Greenfield, his GF, who sits right next to him, like really close to him, too close. He's always looking at her like, hey, baby, I love when you stamp my motions. I love when you stamp my orders. And it's a strange thing that's happening, but she's like passing him all these notes, probably because he's not that bright. And he's taking directions from like a co-judge. And so Trump's defense is wondering if we're watching all of this problematic behavior that's not proper, right? You're either the judge or not the judge. You don't have like two judges. How can they comment on that? How can they bring that to the attention of the public? One way you would do it is by objecting to it. He said they can't even talk about her. You can't file motions. So they're just gagged from talking about, like, my point is, if she walked over to the judge and started giving him a massage and said, you're doing a great job, Judge. Hey, baby, you're doing a great job. Could they comment on that? I don't think so, because he said that they can't comment on her at all. So like that would obviously be inappropriate. The notes are inappropriate. The collusion is inappropriate, and they can't talk about it. And we were wondering how they were going to do it. I'm like, well, I don't know. I think they have to file a motion. Maybe it's under seal. Maybe it's ex parte. I don't know what it is. So they asked the question, the same question that we had. Your Honor, how can we file a motion with the material in your gag order? So apparently Judge Greenfield, which is his GF, who's his law clerk, he's in love with her, says, I got to bring it up. The judge responds and says, I am prohibiting you 1,000% from referencing my confidential communications for the safety of my staff. You can appeal me, which I guess is where we'll go. And the defense is, again, this is like, you have to take your beating and you can't say anything about it. You just have to sit there and shut your mouth. And you're saying, well, my whole job is to like file motions and like respond to a beating. Like that's my entire job. Like I'm a lawyer. I took an oath. I have clients that I represent. I've sweared to, to perform ethical standards. Like I have to file a motion on behalf of my client. What do you want me to do? I am prohibiting you 1000% from referencing my confidential communications for the safety of my staff. You can appeal me. And Trump's lawyer is dead right. They say, we cannot file that motion without including that prohibited information. Like we're going to talk about your GF's notes. Your Greenfield is like passing you notes. It's totally inappropriate. Maybe she is massaging him. I don't know. We have to file. And when we file, it's going to include the prohibited information. Now listen to what the judge says. Judge Engoron says, don't file that motion, Chris. Whoa. First name? That's pretty big. When my mom used to say, Robert, I was in big trouble, like big trouble. It wasn't good. Only happened rarely because I was such a splendid child. So, first name. Now, I also can confirm that this is accurate. And how do we know that? Is because I had a great conversation with GoodLawgic today, who is going to be sharing his reaction to all of this. And he said that that was verbatim. He said, Rob, you're not going to listen to this. Believe this. He says the judge told him, the judge literally told him, do not file. Don't file that motion, Chris. GoodLawgic said that. So GoodLawgic is going to be covering this later tonight. Make sure you're following him. Incredible, right? Don't file that motion. Trump's defense says, we can't be precluded from raising the issue. What do you want us to do? You can't keep it out of the record. Judge says, I told you what not to bring up. Yes, I'm directing you not to make that motion. I am going to protect my staff, which is crazy, man. Like, what is this? Trump's defense says, you mean like the contents of the notes, right? Like what's inside the notes. Like we can't see what's inside the note. That's what you're talking about, right? Judge says, no, even that they exist, which is crazy because, of course, everybody's live tweeting this. Joe GoodLawgic was there. He's like, we all know they exist. Courtroom's full. A lot of people there. A lot of people watching and listening and retweeting. So even that they exist, we can't even talk about it? Judge says, give me a moment to have a confidential communications. Give me a moment to have confidential communications. He whispers with the person next to him, probably Greenfield. And then he comes back. He says, why don't you file your motion, do it by an order to show cause, but don't do it in front of hundreds of people. Now, I'll sign it or not. And it's like, well, Judge, you just brought up this whole thing in front of hundreds of people. So he's trying to cover up for his law clerk. So Trump's lawyer says, we'd like to start our case on Monday. And they say, okay, congratulations on getting this far. I don't know if we'll have a rebuttal case, says the government. And the judge says, save it for Thursday. We're adjourned. So, unbelievable. Unbelievable what happened there in that day. So the judge is saying, you don't even get to hear or to even make mention of my secret love notes in the case. Now, this is from our friend Joe. He was also there. He said, this is the first 30 minutes of testimony so far this afternoon, and he was there. He said, multiple exchanges that work in this way. Verify Donald Trump's signature. Okay, it's like a same flywheel, same flow chart. Love this. Almost a mind map, as it were. Says, verify Donald Trump's signature on a doc. Read a covenant from the doc. Okay, is this your signature? Yeah. Is this your signature? Yeah. Is this your signature? Yeah. Then read it. Oh, it says this. Is that true? And then they have to go, it goes into one of different buckets, right? So Trump either submitted an annual statement and they say that you're required to maintain, regularity. All of this, he leads us to the bank is happy. Okay. Loan is paid. Bank is happy. Doesn't matter where it goes. So Trump signed a document. They're going to say, oh, but your paperwork was a little bit off. Oh, you didn't maintain these materials. Oh, you didn't maintain a net worth. Oh, you didn't have an annual statement. All this crap, right? It's all nonsense. Trump says, I had people who verified it. All the things were done. Bank's happy. Loan is paid. Any objections? Overruled and proceed from the judge. And so that's your trial flow chart, courtesy of the following program, our friend GoodLawgic, Joe Neerman, over on the YouTubes as well. And so he'll be covering some of this stuff tonight, since he was in there in the courtroom taking notes and enjoying. And so we got Inner City Press and GoodLawgic and others reporting all of this to us. We're going to hear what Trump had to say about it and what Alina Habba said about it, because she blasted the judge for the behavior that took place inside the courtroom. But this is what Leticia James is talking about outside the courtroom steps, because she doesn't talk a whole lot in court. She has everybody else do the hard work for her. She just sits back behind the bar in the back of the courtroom, nuzzling her Tish right in her favorite seat.
This morning, Mr. Trump will take the stand in our trial against him, the Trump Organization, and other defendants. Mr. Trump has repeatedly and consistently misrepresented and inflated the value of his assets. And before he takes the stand, I am certain that he will engage in name-calling and taunts and race baiting and call this a witch hunt. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters are the facts and the numbers. And numbers, my friends, don't lie. Thank you.
Real tough there, Tish. Oh man, she's so hardcore. She's so tough. She can't even do a trial. She just sits there in the back and just, goes out in front of the press and makes statements. Did Trump race bait her? He did call this a partisan political witch hunt, and he's dead right about that. So during one of the moments where Trump could actually speak, he came out and made the following statement.
Mr. Trump, you looking forward to testifying today?
I am.
So while Israel is being attacked, while Ukraine is being attacked, while inflation is eating our country alive, I'm down here, and these are all political opponent attack ads by the Biden administration. Their poll numbers are terrible. You saw what happened today. The New York Times and CBS came out with a poll that I'm leading all over the place, but it's a very unfair situation. This is really election interference. That's all it is. This trial is ridiculous. The numbers are much greater than on the financial statement, and we've already proven that. They said Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million. Mar-a-Lago's worth anywhere from probably 50 to 100 times more than that. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. These are political operatives that I'm going to be dealing with right now. You have a racist attorney general who made some terrible statements, and we just see some more that came over the wires today. It's a very sad situation for our country. We shouldn't have this. This is for third world countries, and it's very unfair. It's very unfair. But in the meantime, the people of the country understand it, they see it, and they don't like it. They don't like it because it's political warfare, as you would call it, or political lawfare. Another name, I got a lot of names for it, but usually it takes place in third world countries and banana republics. Nobody's ever seen that to this extent. We've never seen it here. But we will go along, and we will hopefully do very well in every regard. We'll win the election, and we'll make America great again. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make America great again. But we have to take away from the thugs that we deal with and the horrible people that actually must hate our country to do this. But we will we'll fight very hard for our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, so that is Trump. And then after the proceedings, that was before everything took place, after the proceedings, Alina Habba came out, and man, she was fired up about what took place inside the courtroom. all the shenanigans with Judge Engoron and Leticia James and Kev and others, here is what she said.
Coming from the judge who has already predetermined that my client committed fraud before we even walked into this courtroom. I'm not here to hear what he has to say. Then why exactly am I being paid as an attorney, and why exactly are taxpayer dollars being used in this courtroom? The answer is very clear. Because Miss James wants to stand right here like she did this morning and call my client a liar, call the company fraudulent, and make a name for herself. She said this morning that the numbers don't lie and they won't lie in this case. Well, Miss James, I have a message for you. The numbers didn't lie when you ran for governor, and that's why you dropped out. And the numbers don't lie when President Trump runs for office in 2024. And those numbers are loud and clear. This country is falling apart. And if we don't stop corruption in courtrooms where attorneys are gagged, where attorneys are not allowed to say what they need to say to protect their clients' interests, it doesn't matter what your politics are. Everyone has a right in this country to get up and put a defense. I don't care who you are. You have a right to hire a lawyer who can put objections on the record. You have a right to hire a lawyer who can stand up and say something when they see something wrong.
That's our job.
But I was told to sit down today. I was yelled at, and I've had a judge who is unhinged slamming a table. Let me be very clear. I don't tolerate that in my life. I'm not going to tolerate it here. And you know what? You shouldn't either. Because not every American citizen gets a camera and a microphone. And what I'm seeing is such a demise of American judicial system and democracy. Miss James came out this morning and said that she knew Mr. Trump, and she always calls him Mr. Trump because it kills her that he was the president. But the 45th president of this country, one of the best presidents we've had, has built a great company. It's worth a ton more than that statement of financial condition. And she doesn't know how to get out of it because her politics won't allow her. She calls him a bully. She says he's going to bring out racial slurs. He's going to say things today and taunt her. Well, Miss James, you taunted him. Before you came into office, before you saw one record, one statement of financial condition, you taunted him. You said his administration was too male and too pale. Those are her words. She said that she and Michael Cohen were going to be his biggest nightmare. Well, I have some news for you, Miss James. Michael Cohen folded, lied, and crumbled. Your star witness, along with all the DAs and corrupt AGs, need to be paying attention to what happens when you let us take the stand, when you let my client speak the truth, and the judge can tell me to sit down, and he can try and shorten my client's testimony, but it is loud and clear. They've got nothing. They've got nothing but their politics. She's got nothing but her Soros backing, which we discovered recently. And I am sick and tired of seeing it. Pay attention, America. Pay attention. Because when you're in court one of these days and you don't have a lawyer that has a microphone, and you don't have a lawyer that can go on TV, and you've got judges gagging them, what are you going to do?
Nothing.
We need to fix this country. And we need to stop what is happening in this courtroom. President Trump is worth a lot more, and she wasn't ready for it. She doesn't understand it. And before she rushed to judgment, she should have thought about attacking somebody with over 50 years of real estate expertise who changed single-handedly the skyline of New York City.
Amazing.
She picked the wrong person, and her politics will fail for it.
Amazing. Alina Habba blasting Tish James and this entire scam prosecution, and I can't tell you how exactly right she is. Absolutely brilliant, because what she is articulating is the slippery slope danger zone that we're all waddling into. And the Democrats are just creating a weaponized strategy, which is using the law to take out their political opponents. And it's not going to stop with Trump, right? Trump is the current incarnation. These people are power-hungry maniac monsters, and anybody who challenges them is going to get this routine. Businesses, personal freedoms are all being gobbled up because people voted and went and asked to check an election. We have some questions about this election. You're going to jail now for asking a question about that. We have questions about a judge and his corrupt footsie games with his law clerk called Greenfield, and you can't even comment about that. You can't even raise an objection. You're getting beaten down in this circus courtroom, and you can't even lodge a complaint. That is antithetical to America, and Alina Habba is right, blasting him accordingly. And so we'll continue to cover this, my friends. Trump testifying, he's going to be done, but the trial is not, and the lawfare is not. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video and visiting robertgovea.com to sign up for our daily newsletter. We're going to be covering all of the Trump trials, so make sure you're coming back here 5 p.m. Eastern time for our daily live streams covering this trial and more, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, now let's change gears. We're still sticking with Trump, but we're going down to Florida. And we're talking about a classified documents case. And we've got a transcript here, which I'm pretty excited about. So we're going to get right into this transcript. Chaos in the Trump classified documents case in Florida. And we've got a transcript to get into. There was a motions hearing taking place. We were talking about a lot of complicated things like SEPA and when the trial is going to happen, and whether Donald Trump has access to discovery, and how much time the government needs, and so on and so forth. We've got a lot of Trump trials coming up, but the Florida case is kind of getting the back burner after the January 6th case, and there's a lot of complications here because Jack Smith is the special counsel who is prosecuting both of them. And so the judges are wondering, hey, how can you balance both of these trials kind of simultaneously? We know you filed the classified documents case first, then you said you were ready for trial, then you filed the J6 case, and now you're ready for trial on that one. And so we got a lot to unpack here, and we're going to go through it. The person who's been doing some amazing reporting on this is Julie Kelly, and she was very nice to give us the transcript that we'll be able to read through today. So be sure you go follow Julie Kelly on X at Julie_Kelly2, and of course on her platform called declassified.live. I subscribe over to her, and I'd encourage you to do the same thing. She's very, very, very important in the work that we do. But this is a hearing that she attended, and we actually have the transcripts from this. Taking place on November 3rd, the court heard argument from the parties on pending motions to continue. So a postponement, extending the trial out. Total time in court was 1 hour and 38 minutes, and a bunch of people were there. Jay Bratt, who I've learned a little bit more about, David Harbach, and many others were there in court. And so we're going to go through what happened in this proceeding because we're learning that there may have been some collusion between the special counsel's office and the Biden administration, if you are surprised. So we're going to check back in with some conclusions from Julie Kelly. Make sure you're following her. But this is what the transcript sounds like. And this is out of Florida. Southern District of Florida, Criminal Division, transcript of the motions hearing in front of Eileen Cannon, United States District Court Judge. Bunch of people are there. Christopher Keast, Todd Blanche, the same people who were there in the New York trial are also showing up in the Florida case. Stanley Woodward, the lawyer for the defendant called Walt Nada, and De Oliveira also present. Here is what it sounds like. Court is beginning. It's an afternoon session. Clerk says, all right, appearances, please. This is the judge speaking. All right, appearances, please. Government, Mr. Bratt comes in. He says, good afternoon, Your Honor. Jay Bratt here, David Harbach, Michael Thaker, and others from the special counsel's office. Good afternoon, says the judge, Judge Cannon. All right, well, let's hear from the counsel for former President Trump. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Todd Blanche here, joined at the table by Emil Bove. Christopher Keast is also dialed in on the phone. Keast says, good afternoon, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Can you hear us okay, Mr. Keast? I can, Your Honor. I'm going to leave my phone on mute, though. It's fairly noisy here. I'm at the UN courthouse, but thanks for letting me appear by phone. Judge says, okay, all right. All right, so counsel for Walt Nada's here. All right, everybody's made their appearances. Judge Cannon speaking. All right, this is a hearing to discuss defense motions, so Trump and the other defendant motions. for a revised pretrial and trial schedule. Now, as usual, no cell phones here, no broadcasting, don't do anything here. We're all set up, overflow room, Zoom feed, blah, blah, blah. Now, as background, on July 22nd, this is Cannon speaking, saying, following a hearing that was held previously to the return of a pending superseding indictment. And a superseding indictment comes after the fact. It comes, you get one set of charges, and they say, we want to add a bunch more of charges. Okay, well, here comes the next indictment. Well, the problem with a new indictment, it kind of means that everything you said about the original indictment is either moot, or if you said, like, we're ready for trial based on the first indictment, and then you bring in a second indictment, you got to ask yourself, I thought you said that government that you were ready the first time. So if you're ready for trial and then you're going to add in a bunch of additional charges or maybe even another co-defendant, were you being honest with me when you said we were ready originally? Because you just like changed the whole case. So are you being honest or not? So they say, okay, the court entered an order granting in part the government's motion for continuance, and we reset a bunch of deadlines because we've also got SIPA that gives us some deadlines. So we got all that backstory. Okay, some stuff got changed around. So now pending before the court are other filings. I've got a bunch of stuff. We're going to hash through it. Now, a lot of these things move in combination, and all the defendants join these SIPA motions or SIPA motions and defense motions to compel discovery. So Trump and Walt and Oliveira, they all want the government to give them discovery that they're not getting now, and they want additional trial deadlines imposed. Now, of course, the current trial is scheduled for 2 weeks in May of next year, which is pretty soon, isn't it? We're going to have the January 6th case is March, the day before Super Tuesday. Chutkin is not going to move that one unless she has to. They want a conviction well before the final votes. So this is a hearing to discuss those motions, all of these other motions. And because they're defense motions, we're going to start with the defense. Have you guys come up with a presentation format? Because we got 3 co-defendants. So who are we hearing from? So Trump's lawyer jumps up, Mr. Blanche. Your Honor, I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Trump the motion, and then to the extent that Nada and others, they want to supplement, I expect them to do that. So Trump's lawyers say, we're taking the lead. The other guys can jump in if they want. Judge says, okay. Let's start with you, Mr. Blanche. Now, I see the issues raised in these motions falling into different categories. You know, we got a big picture. We got some specific discovery issues, all the granular details that go along with that. So I'm going to use this hearing to try to help the court fully understand what we're talking about. And we're also going to talk about unclassified and classified stuff. Todd's nodding away. Yes. The next sort of the big bucket, I'd say, are concerns about the scope of any defense motions to compel. So Trump wants the government to give them material. How much of that material, she says, we're going to have to debate. That segues, or I think it's considered along for SIPA, Section 4, which I think is also illuminated from the court's order entered today on the subject of Section 3 versus Section 4. We're going to skip all that. And then finally, there is a category of logistical concerns. And under that category, I'm thinking the complex and numerous issues associated with classified discovery and logistical issues and a lot of stuff. Establishment of overall facilities to look at the document. And so the judge is laying this out. So that's kind of the overview. I mean, those are kind of the issues that I see have been laid out. And he says, yeah, it's great. So let's start there. And Todd says, thank you, Your Honor. Sounds great. So I want to start by addressing unclassified discovery. And we discussed this previously. We know Your Honor is aware of this. All right, there is a lot of discovery. Okay, it's extraordinarily voluminous, tons. The most, and the special counsel, if they've represented to the court accurately, they provided a lot of material that in many cases, the defense won't get so early, including grand jury transcripts and other things. And it's certainly helpful. In other words, they've said, we've gotten some things pretty quick, like the initial stuff. They got it to us fast. Okay, grand jury transcripts, Jenks material, and 3500 material. We've gotten it all. And it's been very helpful. But the discovery itself remains extraordinarily complicated, and it's voluminous, especially as it relates to the CCTV footage. Very cumbersome, he says, if not impossible. And I can certainly let co-counsel speak to this. We've got a lot of issues. We simply can't load it in an effective way to review it. And so this is extremely common, by the way. Analyzing CCTV footage, when I was practicing criminal defense, is very difficult. It's almost impossible. Like they're all, Chinese knockoff systems, and they're all incompatible, and they all have different codecs, and they all have different security features. So like pulling it off, it's a nightmare. Unless they like give you a CD-ROM or something, but it's a nightmare to pull it. Nobody can ever access their footage. Once you get it loaded, you got to get proprietary software. It's all incompatible. It's literally a nightmare. And this is the same thing. This is a problem from the government, by the way. Often, like this is Trump CCTV footage, but even the government files are bad. Like they get it and they're like, hey, we put it in our system and you can download our prosecutor's system and nobody can use it. So they say the special counsel has directed us to certain portions of the footage that they say are the most relevant. But from what we think, there's a tremendous amount of footage that we believe has been produced that is not what they have identified that is extremely relevant to us. So they say, well, you don't need to look at it all. We'll give you what you need. And they say, no, we do need the rest of it. So for example, we need to know the extent that the boxes were moved on occasions or other things that were delineated. And so we need to know that. Like we got to see this footage. We can't watch it. My co-counsel can't watch it. Co-defendants can't watch it. Nobody can figure it out. So the judge says, okay, so hold on a minute. So on the CCTV footage, how exactly? Because you're throwing a lot of numbers around. In terms of terabytes, disk, documents, records, that's kind of what I'm struggling with. I want to get particular details. So on the CCTV footage, the judge wants to know, how much is it? They say, well, there are different views on that. Okay, from my understanding from Trump, it's multiple cameras. Some show the locations, depending on the format. Sometimes you can view it. However, up until this point, we even can't get that done. Now, Jack Smith's office is working with the defense to try to figure out how to get a computer to look at this stuff. But when we had our vendor, it took them, our vendors, almost a month or 3 weeks. Our vendor, like the people who are pros, it took them 3 weeks just to view one video, which obviously we can't do that. And so we're not asking, we're not assuming that that's practical. So if you just play it out in minutes, like if you just look at all the footage, it's literally years of footage, like if you just played it. But putting that aside, there are some cameras that are of the same location. So in theory, you can watch those. But we're working our way through the discovery. Cell phone evidence. There's a ton of correspondence. And we have continued to get discovery from Jack Smith's office. And that's not unusual. I'm not saying that it's unusual. But we have continued to get discovery from them since the initial production. And we've been working our way through it all. We're steadfastly trying to do this. But now I want to turn to classified discovery. It's very related. And the challenge with the classified discovery is that until a week and a half ago, we were in a location that was very difficult to work in. It was temporary, very small, very challenging to study the classified documents in a way that we could look at it. It says, and we requested special counsel to get assistance here. They say, and there is a lot of it that is obviously very related given the nature of the charges. The fact that there were, allegedly classified materials found in connection with unclassified materials, we want to know the details. For example, there was a picture that was provided in classified discovery, or a couple pictures, but the bulk of the data from that phone was unclassified. And so we requested that we get the full contents of the phone inside the SCIF so we could review it. But it's been very difficult, as Your Honor knows. From the various briefs that we've submitted, they won't give us access to the documents. Judge says, let's understand that. Now, as of what date, or what should I say, as of what date was all the classified discovery produced minus these small things? He says the 17th. We got it on the 17th. And by the way, special counsel criticized us for the fact that there was an 11-day window between that day that it was apparently available in DC and available to be delivered to the SCIF. On Monday, we had Columbus Day. We found out Friday night we had SEPA filings. Special counsel knows this, so they're giving us grief for no reason. So it's not as if we found out that we had additional discovery and we just waited 11 days. We left on Thursday, found out Friday there were additional materials, and all this time took place. So, Judge, we're moving fast. Don't believe them when they're saying we're not. So at this point, have you had access to all of the classified discovery? We have, Your Honor. We have had access to all the underlying discovery for the counts. And that happened, you're saying, on the 17th when you were able to be here locally. Is that right? Well, there was a series of documents that I believe were flown down the next day, but yes, Your Honor, yeah. And we understand there's some additional classified documents discovery taking place in the SCIF yesterday. And we didn't show up because of miscommunication, which is totally understand. We didn't know it was there. So we know there was some more discovery in the SCIF as of last Tuesday. They notified us. Correct. And so, Your Honor, not to belabor the point, but we spent a lot of time looking at discovery in the SCIF. And when we talk about asking for more time or needing more opportunity, it's not because we are not going down to Miami regularly. We're almost in Miami there weekly. But there was a meaningful, and as Your Honor knows from our filings, we put a letter to the special counsel asking for a tremendous amount of different documents that we continue to believe we're entitled to. Jack Smith still has stuff that they want, but won't give them. So in response to that, we did get some additional documents. There have been several thousands of pages that we've got. They're extraordinarily dense. Well, they're memos, and they're very challenging materials to get through in a SCIF that special counsel, when we found out about it, and we asked if they would agree to more time, literally said in an email to us that 2 days was plenty of time to review the documents. So he's saying they sent them like complicated things and gave them 2 days. And so, Your Honor, somebody blank make motions to compel. And, I don't say this lightly, that is just not true. I mean, we're talking about over 1,000 pages, and we're not talking for the most part about grand jury transcripts or other things. These are very dense materials, and we're going to need time to review them. Now, we submitted another demand last night to Jack Smith to get the classified discovery, but we just got it, and we're just going through it now. But we are sure that we are going to need to file motions to compel. They've got classified materials they're not giving us. Court says, all right, hold on a minute. Now, you said you have gotten some answers to your questions. Have you gotten yet an answer as to whether they conducted their prudential search reviews? So anytime somebody's under investigation by the government, one of the things that you ask them to do is ask for exculpatory information from other agencies, right? Trump is being prosecuted by the DOJ and the FBI, but do other people have exculpatory materials? And maybe they should go search because the government is big. Trump lawyer, did the government confirm that they did those searches? Trump's defense says, Your Honor, vague answer. We received some of these, but we were told, as I think was also told to the court, something vague about what they believe they were required to do under the law. So they haven't affirmatively said, here is what we did, here is what we didn't do. What about classification reviews? Have you guys received all of those? No, Your Honor, we've not received all of them. That is one of the things that we're continuing to ask about. We have received them for some of the documents, but not all of them. All right, what about other Jenks Act or Giglio material that is used by law enforcement witnesses? So these would be things that the witnesses are relying upon to testify. There was some discussion of that. He says, we have some, but we know from the review that there's a lot more. I mean, maybe it's obvious, but there will be references to communications and other emails and other communications, and we haven't gotten any of those. So we understand there has to be more material that is coming, and we just haven't gotten it yet. Now, there was also some reference to the special counsel's definition of its prosecution team. Have you gotten any more clarity on that? He says, yes, Your Honor. So this is an interesting question. Who is Jack Smith's prosecution team? Good question. Well, Your Honor, they quite surprisingly are taking the position that NARA is not a part of their prosecution team, the National Archives, which is curious because they were a government agency who's in charge of the records, in charge of the classified documents. So Jack Smith says NARA is not part of their prosecution team, and that many of the intelligence agencies are not part of the prosecution team. Now they say, that's curious because they're prosecuting him, like literally. Oh, my classified documents are wrecking the world. So we're going through evidence, says Trump's defense, both classified and unclassified. That will be part of, assuming they don't change their mind, will be part of a motion to compel. The big question for Your Honor will be whether NARA is in fact part of the prosecution team, which might enable them to get access to some more materials. They say, Your Honor, we have seen communications between NARA and the DOJ and the White House and the special counsel that started way before what has been publicly disclosed. I want to read that again. So important. Trump's defense says we have seen communications between the National Archives, the DOJ, the White House, and Jack Smith that started way before these were publicly disclosed. Extensive meetings, extensive communications. And so we feel very strongly and expect that we're going to win on that NARA isn't part of this. When we filed the motion that NARA is absolutely a part of this prosecution team and the intelligence communities that they worked very closely with in determining from what we can tell, the particular documents that they chose to charge. So there is purportedly a trench of documents that have classified headings on them, boxes and boxes and toilets, and then only 32 of them that they decided to charge. This wasn't done in a vacuum, Your Honor. They didn't just, pick 32 documents out of a hat and say, well, we're going to go with these. There was a lot of coordination that we can tell from the materials that we do have with the intelligence community that ultimately led them to proceed the way that they did. So yes, we have an answer with them. They say very strongly that they view the prosecution team as being limited to Jack Smith's office and the FBI, and we very strongly believe that's wrong. It is, because NARA was involved, as I'm going to suspect was the Biden White House, orchestrating this whole thing. Court says, okay, all right, you hinted at this a little bit, but on the subject of the motions to compel, what categories do you anticipate for your motions to compel? I know this is somewhat in flux, but if you can shed some more light on that. Yeah, so there's a broad range of discovery we believe we're entitled to, that if we're not able to meet and confer and reach agreement about, we're going to file a motion to compel, Judge. Like we ask you to order it to be given to us. The most significant, for sure, has to do with NARA and to do with the communications of Jack Smith's office, and that the DC U.S. Attorney's Office was emailing NARA before Jack Smith was accounted for. The White House and other intelligence agencies, they were all colluding to get Trump. And they were changing the classifications of the documents. Trump took these, they were changing the categorization internally of the documents. Illegal, not illegal, Trump took them, can we get them, what documents does he have? Right, all of them working together. So they're all part of it. So if there's anything exculpatory that's in possession of NARA or in possession of the DC Attorney's Office, that when he was not at the Special Counsel, shouldn't all that be fair game for exculpatory evidence? I'd certainly say so. And we know, says Trump's defense, that we don't have it all. We can tell from what we do have that there's a lot more out there. So there is also all the prudential review for sure. The way that the intelligence community decided why certain documents are classified and continue to be closely held. And there's a lot more information we don't have about that process. And so we ultimately got to get that done. There's also a category of documents that it actually is unclassified discovery. Now this is curious. We learned a week or two ago that there's a certain category of classified documents that require what is called a, quote, Q clearance. A Q clearance is an official type of classification, and it includes one of the charged documents. So something was for Q clearance level only, and Trump had possession of it. We learned that it's a Department of Energy program. Now, we also learned that President Trump continued to have an active security clearance even after he was indicted in this case with the Department of Energy. So, insane, but they charged Trump with a crime, even though he had active Q clearance security by the DOE. It includes one of the charged documents they said Trump possessed illegally. Okay, so that's one count that is, I would say, is automatically gone. Trump was in possession of a DOE energy document. They said it was illegal. Turns out not. He actually had Q clearance. That is the definition of stuff that he should know. And we can't know whether he had active Q clearance or any other clearances unless we expand the scope outside the FBI and the current Special Counsel. So he says now that, in our view, is the definition of Brady. It was, I'm not going to say it was buried, but it was provided to us in discovery as part of miscellaneous materials at some point in the third or fourth production. He says, I mean, it's literally a memo from the Department of Energy dated in June, dated in late June of this year. So June 28th of this year. And they sent a memo at the DOE. They said, oh, we should remove Donald Trump from the person who has active security clearance. We should just take him out of active role. He's been charged with possessing a document in violation of federal law when he has an active security clearance with the holder of that document. So they charged Trump, literally, Trump's defense says they charged him with a crime, saying that he didn't have clearance, and he does have clearance. And they knew that, and they hid it from us and tried to bury it in the fourth production. So anyway, Trump says, his defense, there's a category of materials such as that we don't believe we have in discovery. Like, we need to know that stuff that they're trying to hide and bury. That it's going to be a part of our motion to compel. So the judge says, okay, so why wouldn't, turning now to the sequencing, why not go through Section 4 process for that? Section 4 is SIPA stuff. He says if we file that next week, we're going to have multiple rounds. You're saying it's going to be inefficient. It's going to be incomplete, inefficient. And he says, yeah. He says, I can put a finer point on that. He says Section 4 is a big deal for the government. They're saying to the court, there is discoverable information that we don't think the defense gets, and they should only get affirmations from the AG. They should get the affirmations from the intelligence community. And he says, so it is a big deal. And this is happening right now, by the way, in the January 6th case. So Judge Chutkan has basically ruled that has ruled that Trump does not get certain classified materials because it's protected under SIPA. And they're trying to do the same thing here, but Judge Cannon's probably not going to let him. Let's see. So we're going through this process and we're filing motions to compel. Let's say some of them are granted, and then we can get back on track. He says, we want the government to answer our various discovery demands. We gave them one last night and one this morning. We need these things. And we're not able to meaningfully meet and confer in order to get this stuff done. So I know at this point, it's just more efficient to go this other way. Do you have any sense how long it's going to take to complete the motion to compel process? No. We commit to filing our motion within 2 weeks, and we'll get it here in short order. Now, she says, let's shift gears to some of this SIPA stuff. And says, Your Honor, we believe that here in this case, the court certainly has discretion to conduct its investigation. You can review these filings ex parte, which means separately. Jack Smith has submitted motions to the judge specifically and not copied Trump's defense on it. And so we're asking about that. And the Trump's defense is saying, yeah, you have the right to do that, and cleared counsel can be involved. Says, does the 11th Circuit impact your opinion? Says the whole point of SIPA and Section 4 is for Your Honor to be educated about this. And so, okay, she says, the Judge Cannon says, and then on the subject of logistical issues, I'm curious what your thoughts are on operational logistical concerns. He says, well, I'm not trying to be flippant with the court, but Your Honor considered the motions last year. So putting aside the new filing, right? They filed a superseding indictment. I just want you to know that Jack Smith completely disrupted everything about the schedule that Your Honor set. There's not a single part of Your Honor's schedule that is not adversely affected by the DC schedule, right? Because this case was filed first, and then Jack Smith said, we're ready for trial. And then he filed another case in DC, and that wrecked everything. So, Your Honor, you were first, and the schedule set by that judge was demanded by Jack Smith in DC. Okay, he said he wanted a speedy trial. And so, to the best that we're aware, Judge, without any regard to Your Honor's schedule, we put a notice in and we've alerted to Your Honor about this. So they're playing both cases against each other. But it's troubling to us, Judge Cannon, that even as late as last week, the government accuses us of being sinister. Sinister because we're bringing to the court's attention the fact that Trump now has, putting aside his counsel, President Trump now has what amounts to probably a 2.5-month trial starting in March in advance of May 20th. 2.5 months, right in the middle of an election. Trump's going to have to sit there every day in January, in the January 6th trial in March. So, and that's by design. Then they want him to do the same thing in May so that he cannot campaign or be active at all. The court says, can you tell me when is that trial set to begin? March 4th. And where are you getting the 2.5 month estimate from? Well, there's a little bit of speculation here. The government says 4 to 6 week trial, and we're expecting a 2-week defense. Honestly, we're still about 20% of the way through the discovery there. And our understanding with Chutkan's courtroom, is the voir dire process, jury selection, is going to be very complicated. Jury selection is not even going to start until the 4th. And then we're building in time for deliberations. And so when you add that, when you put it all together, you're at least 2 months, maybe even longer than that. Judge is like, yeah, that sounds right. Shoot. Okay, anything further from you? I'll give the other defense attorneys an opportunity to be heard. Then I'll turn over to Jack Smith's office. No, he says, look, I don't want to belabor the point with scheduling. It's just that in our position papers, but the real pressure on President Trump and us is a combination of a compressed schedule, compressed in DC, very aggressive schedules elsewhere. And so even with the pretrial motions that are in this case, these are going to be extraordinarily voluminous. We've got a series of deadlines. We're also in January in the DC case. We got motions on the table. We got SEPA litigation. It's voluminous. Oh, okay. He's just like ranting, right? And the judge says, okay, listen, I get it. I think I get the point. There's a lot of work, and clearly there's a lot of moving parts. And he says, yes, Your Honor. He's just like, help. So the other two individuals jump in. And so Woodward's a team makes an argument. Keese is still on the line. Woodward says, we will never forget Mr. Keese. You see how defense attorneys act? You see? We care about each other, man. We're good people. These prosecutors are the worst. Defense attorney Woodward, we're never going to forget about Mr. Keese. We love you, brother. Shout out to Zoom. Love you. So, okay, make a couple quick points. Then we're back. Woodward's making some points. We're going to fast forward through the other co-defendants. We know what the arguments are, and we're going to see what the government says in response, because they're going to turn over to the government at some point, and it looks like we're not there yet. So counsel for Mr. De Oliveira is here. Mr. Keese jumps back in. And now it's Mr. Bratt. Oh, gosh. He's a government prosecutor and one of the worst. So now he's back. Judge is asking him questions. All right. Thank you, defense. Amazing people. Now I'll hear from the government. Mr. Bratt or Mr. Harbach? Mr. Bratt stands up. Says, I think one starting point, Your Honor, is to look at this from a perspective of what the defense position from the outset of this case, and since they have raised the DC case, and also what their position is, and that Trump wants to delay it as long as they can. It's not surprising, says Bratt. He says, given that back in July, they were asking for a trial date after November. And it's not surprising that their motion to change these dates all wants to push it until after November. It says the court cannot let or should not let the DC trial drive the schedule here. In the DC case, they're making the same arguments, but they have not yet filed a motion for adjournment. And so they've not talked about it. And the judge jumps in, cuts them off, says, hey, do you know, Mr. Bratt from the DOJ, do you know of any other case where the same defendant is facing indictment in multiple jurisdictions and the DOJ has taken the position that there should be no consideration to the fact that, of course, the defendant needs to be able to assist in his defense, and there becomes an unavoidable reality that the schedules collide? Any other examples, Mr. Bratt? He says, so they collide. Okay, we don't know that's going to happen. You know, in the DC, can you elaborate on how you don't know that? Because, Mr. Bratt? Because judge cuts him off again, not happy. From what I'm hearing, the schedule is looking like it's going to consume March and April, which is the trial, possibly going into May. And that's to say nothing of trial prep in this case. So, Bratt, your office scheduled this one in March. And you're not even telling us about preparation in my case? and all the many steps that we haven't even embarked upon. And I'm just having a hard time seeing how, this is the judge, how realistically this can work. How can this be accomplished in this compressed period of time, given the realities of what we are facing and the multiple material developments that have come to light since the initial schedule was put into place back in July? You guys brought a superseding indictment, which introduced a new defendant into this case. Not to mention the multiple logistical issues that I have indicated with the SCIF and the security procedures required to review this information. So I'm not quite seeing, Mr. Bratt, in your position, a level of understanding to these realities. Somebody's in trouble, man, big time. Bratt says, and I understand everything the court is saying. A lot of this, though, is in the realm of the, I don't want to say hypothetical, but it is in the realm of we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what is going to happen in this case. We don't know what is going to happen in D.C. Among the things that the defense has raised in the D.C. case is that there are adverse rulings on any of the pending motions to dismiss, that they would seek an appeal and a stay of the proceedings. And so that could happen. We don't know. Now, obviously, there are arguments both ways. There are arguments for the trial court and the D.C. Circuit, but the trial date could disappear. And so we understand that. Bratt's saying, we understand the competing demands on the former president. He's got multiple trials. And I think he stands apart from his counsel. It was he has the right to counsel of his choice, and he did choose Mr. Blanche and his firm knowing they were already involved. But Mr. Blanche and his firm took the representation knowing they were involved in that case. And he says, really, my argument to the court is that we should keep, and obviously there have to be some modifications, particularly with SEPA classified, but we should keep on track towards the trial date that is present. They want both trials to go before the election. Like, that's all they care about, because it's going to bog Trump down in trials. He's going to be sitting in a courtroom. And it's going to cost time and money, and his lawyers are going to be doing those things, and the media, Trump trial, felony. So he's just digging in. Now, he knows he's on the back end of a losing argument, but he says, things could happen, Your Honor. Things could happen with the D.C. case that would make going forward in May perfect. And that could be feasible. So like if there's an appeal and Trump and the proceedings are stayed pending the appeal, or the Supreme Court steps in, maybe we could go on the 20th, so let's just leave it. That may happen, and we can address that at this time. And we should be moving forward in this case. Bratt. Judge says, oh, certainly. Yeah, I think we should be moving forward, not questioning that. And I think we share that view. We're moving forward, all right. Can you drill down on the discovery particulars that I was talking about at the beginning of this, Mr. Bratt, so I can get a better understanding? We've had hearings where we discuss numbers, okay, quantities, data, disks, etc. I know there are a bunch of responses to the SDO, but I would like to get, if you can, it's just a rundown of the unclassified and the quantity of the data associated with that, and then shift over to classified as best you can. Just give me an update on the things I've identified. I would be happy to, Your Honor. So first, I'll start on the unclassified side. He's flipping through his files. We produced approximately 1.3 million pages of classified discovery. And that includes, as we've set out in our various pleadings, almost 200 witness interviews, grand jury testimony, all the 302s, interview notes, all agent notes, and all of that. Judge, this is classified? No, this is unclassified. Okay, unclassified, just to be clear. There are some, says Bratt, there are some classified transcripts. And actually, Mr. Blanche, and sorry. Let's try to stay organized here. So I'm writing this down. Okay, sure. So on the unclassified piece only, you said 1.3 million pages. That's correct. Does this 1.3 million pages, does that include CCTV footage or any other multimedia? So it's, Your Honor, those are the documents, the digital documents that somebody can look at and read. The CCTV footage, the judge says, is what? Separate? Right. You can't put pages on it. Correct. So, but there is all the CCTV, and the judge says, would you agree with Mr. Woodward? He said it's about 60 terabytes. Is that right? That sounds about right. Yeah. Okay. So from what I've heard, says the judge, from a pure temporal perspective, approximately 9 months because of the multiple cameras, it turns into almost 2 years of watching unless you can collapse it into one screen, maybe. And the Jay Bratt, the prosecutor, says, well, I think we disagree with them on the actual math. It's a lot. All right. It's true. Now, it is several years worth of materials of video footage. I think their number is 10 years. I think it's less than half of that, but it is a lot, right? It is a lot. It's important to look at it in context, okay? Some of the key dates for this case are May 11th, and that's when the grand jury subpoena was served. August 8th, when the date of the search of Mar-a-Lago occurred. Those are the key dates for viewing the testimony. You don't need to look at anything else. The key location is Mar-a-Lago. I mean, we did get stuff from Bedminster. We did get things from somewhere, but the key location is Mar-a-Lago. There are cameras on there that are on 24 hours a day. There are cameras that are motion activated. Some of the cameras are on 24 hours a day. For one example, there's a camera that looks at a retaining wall. That's all you see. You may see birds come through, but it's looking at a retaining wall. Well, how do we know that? We don't know that until we watch the whole damn thing. Sorry, that's how it works. Nobody trusts you, J. Brett. I think it is a security camera. It's possible somebody might be able to go over that wall, but it is just looking at a wall. And I don't dispute that they have a right to view these things, but there was a key time period to be looking at, and that's May 11th, August 8th. So we pulled for them what we believed are the key periods and the key footage. So again, it's like Highlighter Girl's back, but that's Molly. She's up in DC. So again, they have every right to look for other things. That's true. And I won't get into the debate with Woodward about the theory of his case. I think we have a theory about where things are, and they have an opportunity to look at things. So look, he says, and look. Now, I appreciate the kind of things they've said to us about our responsiveness on this. They said they got him a bunch of stuff quickly. And I also appreciate Mr. Woodward, owning the fact that he waited 3 months to ask us for the array, now dunking on him. But they have had this material for a very long time. It was actually the first I've heard today that Trump's counsel has been having issues viewing the footage. Never heard of that. And we have enlisted technical experts to assist, and we'll continue to do that. But they have the periods, and they should know where to be looking. The judge says, okay, thanks. Now, is that the full scope of the unclassified? Is that everything? That is the full scope of the unclassified. The one, he starts at, so maybe not. So just to be clear, 1.3 million pages, that's a top line number, right, Mr. Brett? Yes, that's a top line number of all the unclassified, essentially, documents that are in this case. Okay, and all of this information has been produced, right? It has been produced, yes. Okay. And the bulk of it was produced in July. Judge says, when was the last production? Yeah, so our last production, a very small production we gave them, was I think last week. It was like 138 pages, and that was in response to their letter. All right. So, okay, shifting gears now. Let's talk about classified. He says, correct. Is it 3,500 pages, or what exactly is outstanding? He says, I know that there are some disks that have been added to the mix, or perhaps they were always there, but in any case, some details would be, Brat says, sure, would be useful. Brat says, okay, Judge, so in our first tranche of documents that we produced, there were 2,500 pages. Judge says, 2,500, okay. Now, that was produced on September 13th. Now, over the following 3 weeks or so, we produced an additional 3,000 pages, so there was approximately 5,500 pages of classified discovery in the SCIF. Does that include the disks? Well, the disks are separate, but it is important to understand what is on the disks. The disks include photographs of both unclassified documents and the very same classified documents, hard copies of which they now have in the SCIF. And there's nothing unique about what is on any of the photographs that's on the disk. So what you're saying is there is nothing in the disks that is not in the 5,500 pages. Correct. So then why do you need the disks? They're just duplicative. Well, we gave them, so the disks do have the transcripts and the classified interviews. The disks also include the audio for the interviews. Oh, okay, audio. We provided, I think technically under Rule 16, since the photographs were taken during the warrant, that's something that's in the rules. So she says, in any case, you still need to go through all the disks and all the paper and do the cross-reference to ensure everything have actually been reviewed. So even if there is duplication, it still takes time to determine it's a duplicate, right? You say this like a backup copy. Some people like a hard copy of the book, and you also get the Kindle version, right? Because you might want to take it with you digitally. Although these are classified documents, you can't do that. But you still have to match them, okay? Like we trust the publisher, and it's just a book. We don't really, if the page numbers are off, big deal. This is a criminal prosecution. So we're not just taking your duplication at word. Judge says, so good thing you mentioned that, Your Honor, because we have done the cross-referencing for them, which I couldn't care less about. I don't care what they did. They could bake the most beautiful cake in the world. Here it is. I'd take that cake and dump it right in the garbage. Say, thank you, not touching that cake. What's in there? Get out of here with your cakes. I don't want it. We're doing our own cross-referencing. Take your highlighters and your notes and shove it. In our response to their classified discovery letter, we gave them cross-referencing. And they say, okay, and when was cross-referencing done? Monday night? Monday evening? October 30th, maybe? Irving says 30th. Okay. So in terms of the size of the data on the disks, because there was also some back and forth, how much data are we talking about? Brat says, well, I don't dispute, I don't have the number in front of me, but I don't dispute that, audio files and photographs equal whatever the data is that's on it. It's a lot. Now I went through the judge says, okay, so I went through some of the categories with Mr. Blanche about classification reviews. Are those included in there? Yeah, he says, and just to respond to something that Blanche said, it's not just for the 32 documents, the classification reviews. It's for some 340 documents that were there at Mar-a-Lago. So they say, Judge Cannon, so there are no outstanding materials related to classification reviews that need to be turned over. Is that correct? Not from our perspective, Your Honor. They are going to be arguing, we believe, that maybe there is some communications that we should turn over because they're internal. Different agencies did reviews and some of their internal materials need to be turned over. We can address that, but we have turned over what we believe is our obligations and what they require us to turn over. All right, Mr. Bratt, now how about their prudential search? Did you look around at all the other agencies around our government to see if they have any exculpatory information that might be useful to Trump? Your Honor, so we did acknowledge that we did some prudential search reviews, but the one thing is, and she said, nope, can you show me where that is, where you acknowledge that in your filing? It's on page 10. She pulls it up. Paragraph begins on the bottom of page 10. She pauses for a minute and reads it, pulling it up on the electronic court filing docket. Boom, here it is. Okay. So here, of course, you're making the original point that you are not required to conduct these. You said you don't have to do them. But then there is a statement that there have been, quote, appropriate prudential search requests made and produced. So you said you don't have to do them, but then you said you did some that were appropriate. Is that true? Correct. So first I want to follow up with what you have indicated. I guess the answer is, quote, yes, we have conducted the reviews that we believe is appropriate. Is that right? Fill in any gaps. So you say you don't have to do them, but you did do some, and the ones that you think that you needed to do or that were appropriate, you did, and you're done. Is that right? Correct. And he says, I would also just state, another sort of bedrock principle of criminal procedure is the defense doesn't get discovery on how we did discovery. And we believe we have done and taken the steps necessary to comply with our obligations. And Judge, okay, and we can attest to that. Say, I'm attesting to that now. We've done our job. Well, what about all this other material like the Jenks and the Giglio material for law enforcement witnesses? Has that been produced? He says, we produced everything. Agent notes, we provided all the material. I can address the prosecution team issue, right? So now we're talking about hula hoops and how big the scope is. I've given him everything that we need, but it's only the stuff that is from like the FBI. What about NARA and all these other agencies? He's going to say that they don't get that stuff. So they talk about some SEPA stuff. And let's see if we can get to some NARA. Okay, anything further on the motions? And the judge says they're looking at some docket things. Just one other clarification, they say, about some extracted images from Walt Nada's phone. And we're getting close to the end, and so let's see what we've got. Here's the judge. If this is the judge. Mr. Blanche. On the TV footage, our vendor says 10 years. This is Todd Blanche wrapping it up. We've sent numerous requests to the special counsel to learn how the FBI analyzed the footage, but the FBI will not give us information about how they analyzed the footage. So we're going to follow up with them later today. But the idea that we haven't asked the special counsel for more assistance with the cameras is not true. So Brat's a liar. Big surprise. Again, I don't want to belabor this hearing, but Brett says he doesn't have to do certain things. He cited a selective prosecution motion, and there's other materials that we have not been getting from the government. And so, Your Honor, we sent a letter to the special counsel. And in the letter, they said that there are witnesses that undercut their national defense information theory with at least respect to some of the documents. But oh my goodness. And in our letter to the special counsel that they got, that we received from the special counsel, they indicated to us that there are witnesses that undercut their NDI, National Defense Information Theory, but they won't tell us who the witnesses are. So, Your Honor, just to give you a flavor of what we expect, it's not some expansive demand. It's pretty consistent with the information we've already been here telling you. We do have, Your Honor, we do have class review memos where the intelligence community has concluded that a particular document is classified, and so we have a memo. We have none of the underlying correspondence that led to the conclusion that it was classified. So who made the classification? And we can tell from the correspondence that we do have that exists. So there are conversations about the classification that are taking place by NARA and the people in the Biden administration. That's the type of information that we need, and we should be able to get it. And so they're going to be filing a motion to compel, and the judge, may grant it. The final thing, one comment Brad made about me being associated with both this case and DC is extraordinarily unfair. We were, and I have been, and President Trump has been completely transparent with all the courts about our schedules. And to ask for a jury trial to start the day that you're scheduled, they asked for a jury trial to start the day that Your Honor, he's playing to the judge right now. Judge Cannon, you scheduled a hearing in this courtroom, and they asked for another trial to start on that day. They're totally disrespecting you. Instead, what Mr. Bratt says is, well, Trump has the right to counsel of his choice, and so he should have hired a different lawyer. Blanche says, I'm going to add one more point. Although I don't think this moves the needle, but there's a third trial that's scheduled for New York. And so we're hoping that you're going to give us some leeway on that one. Now, the question here is not the question you started out with. They said, is there another case where one, Judge, you asked this question and you have not gotten an answer. It was not answered. You asked, is there another case where one, it's not just the DOJ that brings two separate cases against the same defendant in different districts. It's the same office. It's the same special counsel. It's the same office that brought both these cases. It's their choice, and they put the schedule in flux, Your Honor. We were proceeding apace and continued to, and we were here, regrettably, not because of the conduct of Trump, not because of the conduct of anybody on this side of the room, because they say to Your Honor, we'll figure it out closer to May, and it's just not appropriate. So, Your Honor, thank you. All right, anything further? No. Unless the court has any questions? No. Judge says, well, I'm going to take the two motions under advisement, assessed as the best I can, and enter an order as soon as possible to address these multiple moving parts. I want to thank the parties for their assistance. Have a safe trip back. The court is in recess. And so the big question is going to be about the continuance and whether the trial will be taking place in May or whether she's going to bump that out past the next election, which I have an inkling that she might. Because if you postpone it, let's say 3 months, 90 days, May, June, July, August, we're right, so August, September, October, November, like a 90-day continuance. If you do a 6 months continuance for May, now you're right in November. So maybe at the end of November after the election, because you're too close if you just go 90 days, so you got to go full 6 months. I think that we're probably going to see this one get postponed. And of course, we'll be here to continue to cover it, my friends. Southern District of Florida, Judge Cannon. And what I like most about this is that Jay Bratt got scolded and the judge didn't let him get away with the same type of garbage that we see them getting away with in the DC Circuit Court. And so, my friends, this is the classified documents case. We will be here continuing to cover this. Thank you to Julie Kelly for sharing those transcripts with us. You can follow her at Julie_Kelly2 on the X platform and check her out over at Declassified Live. She does great work on this case, and she was physically there at this hearing. And so be sure to read her update and follow some of her X's as well. we'll continue to cover this trial and all of the other Trump trials. Thank you for subscribing and joining us as we do, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. So I had a third segment on the day, but we're going to bump that one. We're running super short on time, and it's a bumpable segment. So we'll bump that one. We'll see if we get it tomorrow on our members only stream. And so we'll leave it there. We are now going to hear from you and to see what you have to say about this. We covered some good ground, chaos in the classified Trump hearing, classified documents hearing, and Trump testifying in New York with Alina Habba ripping the judge. But now, my friends, let's see what you have to say about this over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We got some amazing super chats, some amazing donos in the house. Members, stick around. We're going to be doing an after party as soon as we're done here. And so stick around. But first, let's say hello to our friends in the chat. And this morning on our members only stream, we had the Chugi Show come by. A member for 2 months, first month's the hardest, says just saying hi and no baby in 7 months. No baby in 7 months from now. We'll see about that. I don't make the rules. Okay. If you get 9 months here, you just like wake up with a baby one day. It's how it works. I'm not in charge of the rules. All right. And so that was from the Chugi Show live. Thank you, the Chugi Show in the house. Let's see. We had another one. Hey, Revolutionary Bliss this morning. Another member for 2 months says, me too, LOL, 2 months as a member. We're glad you made it. First month's the hardest. If you can stick around for the second month, you can say things are getting pretty serious over here. And we got Zach Nichols clipping away for us. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate you, brother. We got Social Viking on the tubes, on the locals. Says, if something happens to this judge, will Trump have to start all over from the beginning? Do you, nothing's going to happen to the judge, bad, of course. But if something like he recused or he got, I would declare a mistrial, in other words. Like, it would be a mistrial, and you have to start the whole trial over again, I think is where you're going with that. Like, hopefully nothing happens to the judge. But if the judge screws the case up so badly that the judge has to go, they're going to file a motion for a mistrial. And that's how the case will resolve. So then, yes, it would be a restart. Social Viking in the house. The Rubos are here. What's up, the Rubos? Say here, a judge should uphold the integrity, Canon 1. Oh, not about the judge. Canon 1. A judge should uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary. Saying this is from the U.S. courts. An independent and honorable judiciary is indispensable to justice in our society. A judge should maintain and enforce high standards of conduct and should personally observe those standards so that the integrity and independence of the judiciary may be preserved. The provisions of this code should be construed and applied to further that objective. It would be nice if we had some good judges out there. But we're talking about DC. Good to see you, the Rubos. And by the way, you can get some amazing salt at rubosaltshop.com. You put this stuff on your food. Stop eating Morton's. Ugh, gross. rubosaltshop.com. We got Trevelyan Gale. Says, love the show, Rob. In U.S. new language, a gaggle means a crowd of gagged peoples. Yes, it's right-leaning political activists are all gaggled up because we're all gagged to death by the partisan prosecutors in charge. And I think they do a gaggle aboard Air Force One when Karine doesn't come out in front of the podium. Thank you, Trevelyan Gale in the house. Good to see you. Rocky Water says, cheers to Matthew Russell Lee. Guy's my kind of nutcase. Love him to bits, I do. Yeah, Matthew Russell Lee is Inner City Press, who did the great X-Script reporting. And he's great, man. He does great reporting. So be sure that we're sending some love over to Matthew Russell Lee at Inner City Press on the X. He does great reporting. He did the whole Ghislaine Maxwell trial. I mean, it's really good stuff. Good to see you, Rocky. Sean Brem is here. Says, Eighth Amendment defense for witch hunt. It's unconstitutionally cruel and unusual for targeting for political reasons, but not going after Biden for the same documents issue. Right. And think about the distinctions, Sean. Like, he had his at Mar-a-Lago, which was set up for an ex-president. Joe Biden had his classified documents at, a garage next to Hunter's crack pipe. So one's different. Trump was also a president, so meaning he had declassification powers and the opinion clause power in the United States Constitution. Joe Biden didn't have any of those things. So it's not even close. But he is not being prosecuted, and Trump is. Why is that? Odin Keys is here. And thank you, Sean, for that nice one. Odin Keys says, this court and other recent cases have convinced me to leave my career in IT and pursue a law degree. I want to become a constitutional lawyer now and want to bring judges like this down. Man, Odin, we need more good people in the legal space. We need good fighters and people who are willing to go hard at it. And so I will welcome you aboard. It's a long journey. It is very, very rewarding. A lot of work, a little expensive, but well worth it. You know, I'm very happy with what tools I've been provided after a career of studying the law and practicing law to get out there and mix it up in the world, right? To be impactful in the world. I think it really gives you good tools, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you out there, my friend, in the world. Good to see you, Odin. Thanks for the dono. B-Man says, they're talking collusion in the Florida case, but you have to think with the scheduling, in all cases, there's collusion. I don't doubt it. Yeah, I mean, the collusion I was talking about more specifically was between Biden, Jack Smith, and NARA and the FBI, all to create a prosecutorial environment against Trump. We got this one from Catherine Rex, says, I'm loving the court mind map. We're loving you, Catherine. Thanks for being here. I'm loving the court mind map. Well, we try to mind map it up here. You know how it goes. Mark Mills, what's up, Mark? Mark gifted one new membo to Glenn C. Glenn C is coming in the house, and we got a little dono chain going. Glenn C then made a dono and brought in 5 new membos. So Mark Mills brought in one membo called Glenn C. Then Glenn C did a domino and brought in Gail C, Wheezy Bob, Vote Justin Out, Cool Comics Guy, and W. McMaster, all coming in courtesy of Glenn Croy. Rocky Water is here. Says, woohoo, here, Alina. A tip just for you, for Alina. Man, she was fired up, man. She did a nice job. Jentifer is here. What's up, Jentifer? Says, I've missed your shows lately due to being very busy, but what a day to hear your show with my darling Donald testifying. Wow, the greatest troll out there. He dropped great zingers. And he ripped Tishy right to her face. Jentifer, we're glad to have you. Thanks for swinging by. You know, we'll catch you when we can catch you. Hopefully you're having a beautiful day. And Trump, it was fun, man. It was fun. I enjoyed Trump's testimony. They didn't get anything out of him. Glenn C. What's up, Glenn? Bringing in 5 new membos, another 5. Mama Rocks, Homies Jax, Steve Lee, Donna Greathouse, and Vicky O, all coming in courtesy of Glenn Croy. What's up, Glenn? Thank you for that. Jentifer says, one more thing, Rob. The entire trial is a complete clown show. Have you ever seen a more ridiculous charge in your time in courts? I can't even believe it's really happening. Can Engoron be charged? I mean, probably could find a crime for him, but he's in New York. Like, they're all cheering each other on. It's like a big party in there. They're all just as thrilled as can be. So, no, I mean, Engoron maybe can get appealed. He can get, you file a judicial complaint against him, but nobody's going to charge him because it's New York. They're like thrilled. Probably give him a promotion. Biden will probably put him on the Supreme Court. Carrie's here. What's up, Carrie? Says, great show today. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for the awesome feedback and the lovely dono over on our locals platform. Carrie G in the house. We got Finn Contracting became a supporter. Welcome, Finn. We'll be looking forward to seeing you. YouTube supporters, YouTube members, grab the private Telegram link in the community tab section, and we'll see you over there in the members only after party. We got more membos coming in. Dolphin Fan bringing in 5 new membos. Dolphin Fan is the man. We got Hope Arising, Mr. Trump Train, Crypto Beauties here, Boiler Operator, and Metal Jake in the house, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man with Mrs. Dolphin Fan. Hopefully you guys have recovered from last week's birthday party. Jennifer Newman says, this is unbelievable. Are there no other judges that would speak to the judge about his conduct? Does any appeal matter to the court? So yeah, appeals might matter, but they're appealing in New York. So what's New York going to do? Like, the forums are so bad for Trump. The forums are so bad. It's like, what are we going to do? Unbelievable. I think this judge is actually what they want. Like, he's doing the job that he's been put there to do. Doing a great job of it. Bruce Wayne. Oh my gosh. Batman's here. Says, great job, Rob. What a mess it is. It's good to see you, Bruce. Yeah. And thanks for being here and for saying that and for donating. It is a mess. It's quite shocking how bad it is. Bruce Rice, also been a member for 13 months. That's a baby and then some. Rob, do you know this character called Ragged? No. Do you know this character called Ragged? Raged? Raged? No. I'm trying to think of what I might know. I don't think so. I don't know. We got this old guy's here. What's up? This old guy says, we covered the New York fraud case and the Florida case, but we need a quick question about the Colorado case. After extensive investigation into Colorado and the Amendment 14th trial, I can confidently report that although the audio generally sucks as far as voice quality is concerned, the microphone for Judge Wallace clearly reproduces the sound of her crunching down on whatever she is eating all day long. It is really quite annoying. Oh no, that's amazing. So I was also talking to GoodLawgic about this, and he was live streaming that trial. And I think he ran into some shenanigans with Judge Wallace. You have to check that out over there. Good to see you, this old guy. I was hearing wheezing. I was hearing somebody I thought was over the podium wheezing. Like in between questions. I was like, good Lord, man. Get some exercise. All right, this old guy. All right, good to see you. We got this one from Knox Bierman's in the house. Says, just got here. Happy Monday, all. Hope everyone celebrated Dia de los Muertos. Peeps in Tucson posted pics of the procession. It was packed. That's always an interesting event. I did not know that was happening in Tucson. How fun. From Knox Bierman in the house. Good to see you, Knox. Did you go? You got to send some pics. Tanya says, what's up, Tanya? Tanya Karras over on the Locals says, since these trials are blatantly election interference, who can charge or prosecute that? Or is it not a chargeable offense? Oh, well, they charged Trump with it. So they charged Trump essentially with obstruction and, interference and all those different things. So they certainly could, but the DOJ is not going to prosecute themselves. Like, they're in charge. So the safety valve in our Constitution is that you win the election. And the way that you enable the winning of the election is by protecting free speech. So you speak about the corruption, you win the election, then you fix the corruption, which is why they're trying to gag him so that he cannot speak about this. That's how nefarious these people are. We got this one from the doc says, if the Florida case is postponed till after the election, it's effectively over for documents. DOJ unlikely to divert resources to something that will be overturned. When the Trump admin gets access from the inside to what led up to the trial, likely cause perpetual Democrat embarrassment in light of Crossfire Hurricane. I think so too. I think the Florida case is just a shiny objects case. John McGarvey bringing in 10 new membos. We got Bourne coming in, Brian B, JD Lamont, Chris J, SCVM. We got Pete C, Margaret S. We got Mars Soul and Man of Steel and Geneva all coming in courtesy of John McGarvey. Also, C. John is bringing in the old bag, Kim S, Freed, Austin L, Troublemaker Jonah, all coming in courtesy of C. John. We got Bruce Wayne as a supporter. You love it, Bruce. Come on in, Bruce. And our new supporters, we'll see you on the members only after party. Grab the Telegram link on the YouTube community tab section. We'll see you over there. It's going to be very short today. We got like 5 minutes left. We got NY says, the New York state law states Judge Engoron, who's age 74, retires when he hits 76. His term is going to be until 2029. He ran unopposed after his appointment in 2015. I suspect he will be forced to retire. From the good doctor over on the Locals. And let's say very quickly hello to our friends on X before we have a very short after party on the day. And of course, we'll be back in the morning to attend to anything that we miss. But we got 14 viewers on the X. Woo, woo, woo. Man, we're like double digits here pretty consistently. So shout out to our friends on the X platform. We got Wizard Computing. Danny McWilliams says, goodbye statute of limitations, goodbye due process, and goodbye lawyers too. Still watching. This should have been televised. Fred says, I honestly don't even know what to say, except Alina Habba. We also got Danny McWilliams, James Pepper with a couple posts. George says, Rob, solid 60 through the first case, then a spike at 120. Great job as usual. Thank you so much for all you do. I've counted on you for clarity from Emery. Thank you, Emery. 112 viewers, and George is in the house, other side of the mountains here. And M Money says, I missed you because of the time change, and Viva's coming on at 6, and Trump, and Crowder, and Bannon, and local news. Who do I watch live? Sorry I missed you. Well, it's on record. It's all recorded. So did Judge Engoron's Democrat donor Greenfield tell Judge Engoron that he's not here to, I don't know what her notes say, actually. What is she sending to him? Who knows? But, all right, my friends. So thanks for sticking with us as we're a little short on time. We are going to wrap it up right there and say thank you to our mods and our meme smiths who mod down the fort for us and keep things nice and orderly. We got our friends, Donut Mind Me, our friends clipping away for us along with Zach Nichols. Thank you both. Dog Digger, Janek 909, John Allen's in the house, Zach Nichols clipping for us, Beyond Geo, Zulu, Ronnie Cole, Playing Hooky, our friend Just Cause, K Bean, and of course, Manticus Prime, I think is on game night or whatever tonight. So, but that, my friends, is it. We've got our meme smiths, Geegum Geegum, Nathan N810, and of course, Sleepy Dog Lee memeing the forts down for us. But that is it for us on the day. We're going to have a very short members only after party, so stick around. Of course, we'll be back in the morning for our members only stream in case we miss anything. But that is it for us on the day, my friends. We are going to be back here tomorrow to get into it all again. And we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.